Sorry about that. I meant to stop the screen share and I stopped the broadcast. My fault. Stay levy. Okay. I do apologize. So I'm now screen sharing it. Screen sharing it on the other screen. Does that make it easier to read? Is for me a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So he says, so now we have the definition of atheism in your favorite source being based upon a definition of use of theism that doesn't fit with other philosophical sources. Well, no, it does fit. When the SEP says it is best understood as a proposition, it doesn't say it must be understood as a proposition. It doesn't say it can only be understood as a proposition. This is the problem with people don't know how to read properly.
Well, and in that paper, it specifically says this is how people understand it, but for the purpose of this paper, this is how I will be stating it.
Yes, and matter of fact, Draper does that on more than one occasion, actually. Yeah. And by the way, I don't have the live chat up, but can people make sure that they found the new link? Do they get over? Do you have that? You know what? I can probably do it. Let's see here, just to make sure we have people that figured it out. Yeah, a couple of people did.
Yeah, we got 22 people over.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So can you let the other people know in the live chat? So please, if they're still sitting on the other one, can you send them the off the hook? Can you send a link for the other one or for this one on the other chat? So anyways, the philosophical definitions can be multiple, right? Theism can be a psychological belief, but the problem is you can't test psychological beliefs like that. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit with the philosophical sources. The author of this paper for SEP is merely saying this is how it's generally best understood. Okay, there's a huge, huge difference there. Anyways, this is where it gets really, really good. Okay. Is there a God? There are only two possible direct answers to this question. Yes, which is theism, and no, which is atheism. Answers like, I don't know, no one cares, I don't care, an affirmative answer has never been established, or the question is meaningless, are not direct answers to the question. Now, before we get into what he said, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a fact. When you have a closed question, there's only two direct answers. Yes or no. Okay, now there's many different indirect answers, right? But there's only two direct answers. Now, sure. Jim or Chris, let me ask you, if I ask, and this is the question that Dillahunt kind of get upset for, I said, does God exist? Which is very similar to, is there a God? I don't see a really significant difference. You're asking about ontology. Now, would you agree, or what would you say if you said yes to that question? Is there a God? What does that make you?
Theist.
Yeah. I mean, is there really any kind of question to that?
No.
Okay. Now, if you say no to it, what are you?
A non-theist.
You're an atheist, but what type of non-theist?
You're an agnostic atheist.
I will shoot you. You're clearly an atheist. You're holding the position that there are no gods, right? Which Flew calls a strong atheist. I'm fine with that. Okay.
Sure.
But it's two direct answers. It makes it very simple. Yes. Theist. No. I'm affirming there is not a God. Disbelief is as we went over the other day, disbelief is the negation of the proposition that if you assert that it's false. So you have belief, you have disbelief, and you have suspension of judgment.
Sure.
I believe P, theist. I disbelieve P, atheist, which means not just I do not lack a belief, but it means I believe that P is not true. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have the other indirect answers.
Then you have the other indirect answers. Okay. So he says, LOL, based on what? An empty assertion by the author after wording it in a way that creates a false dichotomy. This is not a false dichotomy. This is ontological reality. Ontology, which means being, right, is saying there are only two possible states here. God exists or God does not exist. There are no other options.
Yeah, his flaw detector is flawed, to say the least.
Well, and this is why I don't bother with a lot of these people. If they don't understand basic reasoning and they're just going to spew stuff out to me, then why do I really want to waste my time with them? This is low-level shit here, right? And so when somebody says that, oh, well, this is based on what? It's just based on ontology, okay? So let's look at the ontology. God exists or God does not exist. Now, when we talk about the epistemology, we're talking about beliefs. Beliefs are not dichotomous. This is why atheism and theism are not dichotomies for the millionth time. They're contradictories. People need to get that through their head. So there are more than two answers to is there a God, but there's only two direct answers. So what does he think that's a false dichotomy there? He says, yeah, flaw two. What other options are there that's direct?
He's conflating. I mean, so there are atheism and theism exist within a dichotomy, but are not a dichotomy themselves.
Run that by me again.
Atheism and theism exist within a dichotomy, but they're not a dichotomy themselves.
The dichotomy is theist or not theist.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you know, it's funny. I had a nice long discussion with Ozzy today on this particular topic, and
I had one with him yesterday.
Yeah, he's great, and we agree 99.9%. He just told me I could have. He gives me little fine tuning tips, right? Which I really appreciate because there's nothing really gross that we disagree on. And the other day we were talking about theist and not theist, and whether rocks are theist or not theist. And of course, anybody who knows logic is going to agree in a coarse way that a rock has to be a theist or not theist in classical logic. There are just no other options, right? It would be in the most universal, generalized conditions. Now, there's something called Yazzie calls it the universe of discourse. I call it the domain of discourse. They mean the same thing. We both know what we're talking about. But you can actually limit the domain of discourse where that may not necessarily hold, where a rock would not be either. And I tried to relate this the other day, and I don't think I did a really good job by saying, okay, like theological non-cognitivist, right? In the domain of discourse of epistemology, then the theological non-cognitivist would not fall into theist or not theist, even though it's a dichotomy, because you're limiting the scope of the discourse. Okay. Now, people do that in mathematics all the time. And there's reasons to limit the discourse. Now, I wasn't limiting the discourse. I was using a very broad generalization, which does hold true. I wasn't wrong, but I really didn't be specific enough that you can narrow the discourse down to where you have a situation that something does not fall into theist or not theist, like a theological non-cognitivist does not fall into either one. You can shoehorn them, right? You can say, look, I'm just going to work with classical logic. I'm just going to say, you know, the law of excluded middle, and you can pigeonhole them in there. But the problem is you've eliminated the position, because the position says none of this stuff makes sense. You can't call me a theist or not theist. It makes no sense either way. So does that kind of make sense? Because it's really hard to think that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's called the domain.
Timeshark. Timeshark. If you have some objections or whatever, I think now would be the best time to address them if you want to get in here.
Yeah, go nuts, man. I mean, here's the thing. This guy's telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm talking to philosophers for hours off air because they give me the time of day. Right? Yeah. They take me seriously.
Well,
nobody takes people seriously when they make
because they see
like this, they say.
Well, and even me, and I am no philosopher, but they see that I'm willing to learn, that I'm not just going to sit here with my fingers in my ears saying no, this is what I've known, and it makes me uncomfortable to be wrong. Right. You know, there's nothing wrong with accepting new information. Just
he's even
humble
said,
yourself and move the fuck on.
You know, he stopped listening because he doesn't want to learn. This is why I don't waste time with these people. For the last months or years when they've been leaving comments, I don't waste time with them. I rather spend my time with you guys explaining this stuff. So when you read SCP, you know what the hell it says properly.
This is you sticking your fingers in your ears. Oh, I wasn't listening. You just admitted it yourself. You have no intention on hearing an argument. You just want to be right.
Yeah, he says, I never said you didn't know what you're talking about. Oh, wait. He basically is laughing at me, telling me I'm just have no fucking clue kind of thing. And yet he doesn't say that I know what I'm talking about. He said, I said you were an ass who puts arguments and claims in other people's mouths. Oh, wait, I put my arguments and claims into their mouths. No, I don't have that much control over people. If people want to repeat my arguments, which by the way, they do, that's not my issue. That's their issue. They have to defend my argument. If they're using my arguments, they have to defend it. Right? That's up to them. And I'm glad that they do, but you can't just say, well, Steve said, that doesn't work that way. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only is he saying that you're wrong, but he's saying that Draper's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to get Draper on. Actually, Draper's going to have a conversation with Alex Malpass about this stuff.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Draper's kind of sick that people misrepresenting him. I think Heretic was the last straw on that.
I can't blame him.
Yeah. Well, Timeshark doesn't understand speech act theory either. there's an implicature throughout every one of the things he messaged me that I obviously don't know what I'm talking about, because he argues with me and basically laughs at me. So it's whatever, but I don't care about that. So let's get to the facts. So so we are at 2 flaws and 2 paragraphs. No,
That means you're saying he's wrong.
Yeah, you're literally saying that what I'm telling people is wrong. Paul Draper's wrong. So,
but I never said you were wrong, Steve. Point out where you said I was wrong.
This is called implicatures. Okay, so while identifying atheism as a metaphysical claim that there is no God, it is particularly useful for doing philosophy. It is important to recognize that the term atheism is polysemous. It has more than one relating meaning, even in philosophy. I agree with that, right? I can come up with 8 definitions for atheism right off the bat. Okay. I mean, is the belief that God doesn't exist? It's the ontological belief there's no gods in the universe. It's a belief that theism is false. It's the negation of theism. You can even go so far to say it's the belief that supernatural doesn't exist. That's according to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I don't do that, but there are people that use it that way. Okay. I think atheism and supernaturalism are completely distinct things. However, if you are a philosophical atheist or philosophical naturalist, you have to be by entailment an atheist, or you're kind of have a inconsistency there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But what he's saying here is not refuting anything that you said. That you say you agree that the term atheist is polysemous.
Yes. How many times have I said that too?
Every fucking time that you say that it's not. No.
So wait, he's like shocker. Wait, so the term has more than one meaning? Wait, no. He spends the rest of the paragraph making up ad hoc reasons why his is the only legitimate one. Sort of like what Steve does. No, that's not what Draper does. Draper does not prescriptively fucking do that. He acknowledges there's multiple definitions. That's what the word polysemous means. Okay. And he's like shocked. Wait, so this term has more than one meaning? Yes, dude. And if you would ever watch my channel, you would have known this, because we talk about it all the time. The word has more than one meaning. So does agnosticism. Matter of fact, if anybody can tell me the 3 main things agnosticism is used by, I'll be very impressed, because I just talked about it not too long ago, but I don't know if anybody remembers.
And he in no way, Draper in no way says that his term is the only legitimate one.
Not even remotely close. Well, this is why I think this is the only time
and it's been months since the last time that I've read that particular paper, but yeah, that's completely bullshit.
Yeah, but it's like he's shocked there's more than one meaning. I'm like, really? Okay. Okay. So departing even more radically from the norm in philosophy, and by the way, I've read this article entry more times than anybody that I know of. Okay. So I'm very familiar with Draper. Departing even more radically from the norm in philosophy, a few philosophers are quite a few non-philosophers claim that atheism shouldn't be defined as a proposition at all, even if theism is a proposition. Instead, atheism should be defined as a psychological state of not believing in the existence of God or gods. Wait, so some philosophers don't agree with your definition and instead support the colloquial one. That's sort of disingenuous to claim that your favorite is the definition then, isn't it, Steve?
It's not his favorite. It is most philosophers' favorite.
Yeah, and it's not the definition. And the worst part is I never said there are not philosophers that don't use the colloquial definition. My argument has always been and will always be that the most commonly found definition in philosophy is what I'm fucking telling you it is. The belief that God does not exist.
There are many philosophers who believe that the colloquial usage of a word is the best, but that does not necessarily make it true.
Yeah. And yeah, this is exactly. And Draper's not saying you have to use this one, right?
Right.
But we all know there's multiple definitions. You can use the colloquial definition. Nobody's ever said you can't use the colloquial definition. The argument has always been the people arguing for the colloquial definition need to stop lying to people that there is no other definition. He's actually supporting my own argument by convincing people and telling them that words are polysemous here. That atheism is not just a lack of belief. It's not just not theism. That's bullshit.
Right.
He's actually supporting this by going, oh, look, it has more than one meaning. Yes, that's been my argument for 5 years.
So that means that whenever people ask you what atheism is, you can stop saying that it is just the rejection of a belief.
Yes, you can say atheism is a lack of belief and also a belief that God doesn't exist. I'm okay with that. But as soon as you say that it's just a lack of belief, you're wrong. You're just fundamentally wrong. And I think that a lot of atheists are actually moving away from that lack of belief definition. And I'm going to get into Flu's paper. and kind of show you why. But even he acknowledged that in philosophy, atheism is the belief that God doesn't exist, right?
Yes, he
I mean,
does.
so, I mean, have you read Presumption of Atheism?
Yeah, which one is that? The 2000
1972.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
have not.
All right. Well, I'll show you the highlights because I've read it a couple times. I have some notes on it.
Who is it?
Anthony Flew.
FLUE.
FLE. Yeah. FLEW. Anthony Flew is a philosopher that he tried to change atheism from the belief that God does not exist to just anybody who doesn't believe there's a God. Now, which is comical because you get atheists out there going, "Oh, look at Steve and Ozzy and other people trying to change the definition." No, we're trying to keep the same definitions that have been around for 200 years. It's the atheist experience, an American atheist that wants to change the definition.
Well,
They
and
have a campaign to call dictionaries to try to get the definitions changed.
right, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them using it as long as they are honest about it. But they need to realize that the term atheist is not all encompassing, and there are people who don't agree with the colloquial usage, such as yourself, who feel disserviced, I guess, in a way of people kind of abandoning that.
Well, you know, he became a deist, right?
What's that?
He actually left atheism and became a deist. He didn't even buy his own argument. And the thing is that the statement, all atheists lack a belief, but not all who lack a belief are atheists, is a very true statement. This is where most of the problems arise from. When you have an atheist who doesn't understand these things and say, no, that's not true, they're an idiot. I'm sorry. You're on the same level of creationist. I mean, if people are going to be talking about people that don't understand scholarly stuff, that's the kind of idiocy that I am forced to say, look, I just don't think that you understand this topic. If you think that is a false statement, it is clearly not a false statement because there's definitions out there of atheism, which, you know, support the fact that throughout history for the last 200 years, it's been the belief that God does not exist. So if you abide by those definitions, you're not an atheist. If you don't have the belief that gods don't exist, simple as that. You know, you can still lack a belief, but you're not an atheist according to those definitions. Doesn't mean you can't call yourself one. I don't care.
Please tell me his next point is not going to be misrepresenting Huxley.
Oh, yeah. He screws up Huxley too. Yeah. By the way, I don't think he even knows who Huxley even is.
He probably doesn't.
Yeah. This is where, again, I kept telling him, look, this is one of those times you should shut the fuck up and learn something rather than try to argue. I don't see the need for why atheists seem to have to argue shit they know they don't understand. It doesn't do anybody any good. Okay? It just doesn't. There are times where I'm in a conversation and I don't know what the fuck's going on. You think I'm going to argue with them? I'm going to, no. Explain to me what's going on, and hopefully I'll try to understand it. And then maybe months later, I will try to argue it. Right? Okay. So he says, let's skip to agnostic now. Where the author of the article in the encyclopedia, oh, notice he puts it in quotes, the encyclopedia. Yeah. Stanford Encyclopedia. It's just quote unquote encyclopedia. Spends a paragraph showing us what the originator of the modern term in philosophy said about the term and why he didn't mean what he said and was wrong. I don't even know what he means by that. What does he think? How does he think this coined term agnosticism came about? Because agnosticism has not jack shit to do with Gnosticism. Those are two distinctly different things. Matter of fact, guess what Wiki says? Don't confuse them. If you go to Gnosticism, it says don't confuse with agnosticism. They're unrelated, people. So this diagram where you say, oh, look, it's agnostic and Gnostic. No, no, they're unrelated. They have nothing to do with each other. They just have similar roots. That's all. But let me ask him, hey, Timeshark, do you know who coined the term and why he coined it? Let's see if he probably knows who coined it, but why did he coin it? Why did Huxley say, yeah, I'm going to coin this term agnosticism? Yeah.
And what all did that entail?
Oh, why? I'll tell you in a few. Yeah.
I know. I'm just asking him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you can go to Service's video. It's all up there, except like I said, I don't remember where this is at. I would have showed it on the video, but I couldn't find it, so I took a screenshot, luckily. But he says he then goes in a gross argument trying to make both agnostic and agnosticism fit both what he wants with each other. Dude, Chris, are you there? Parse this out for me, because I know you speak 4 languages. What the hell does this mean?
Where?
Did Chris leave? Okay. He says he then goes into circular argument, trying to make both agnostic and agnosticism fit both what he wants and with each other. No. Let's explain this. Yeah, I know I started on a Bionic Dance's thread, but even a Bionic Dance, I couldn't find it. So I'm going to screen share it and we'll go back to it. But okay. Agnosticism is the psychological state of being agnostic on the proposition. Okay. So let me run by that by you again there, Timeshark. Agnosticism is the psychological state of being agnostic on the proposition. It is somebody who says, I do not assign a value of true or false to the proposition. Okay. That is how the word in modernity is used. It doesn't refer back to Huxley and agnosticism. Can it? Sure. But that's
sure, if you're using that in that context.
Yes. And that's equivocation if you're using it with respect to the proposition of theism and you're saying, oh, well, yeah, I'm gonna use Huxley's version of it, which was a normative epistemic principle.
Right.
How does that work?
And the origin of the word has nothing to do with the usage of the word, popular or not. Whatever is widely accepted does not necessarily mean that it was the original, nor vice versa.
That's what's called an etymological fallacy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I used this the example the other day, taxonomy with animals. You know, whenever they find a new fish or whatever, and they name it after something Latin based, they're not really calling it a red shoe. Like, that's just something that, you know, it resembles it. And so, I mean, you can't. It's a fallacy to try to use the origin of a word to state your argument.
Yeah, agnosticism doesn't even mean knowledge. Agnosticism actually meant, the way he coined it, was the illusion of knowledge.
Right.
Big difference. All right, so I love this. Number 7.
And not even the illusion of knowledge, but the assertions of claims that can only be known by certain people.
Yeah, that's why he coined it. Exactly. He coined it because he thought that the Gnostics of his time didn't have justification to either A, know God, or B, believe God. Either one. Both of them are epistemology. So he didn't feel like they had any justification to. So he wanted to fit in. He called himself a fox without a tail. And he didn't feel like he had a label that really identified him. That's why he coined agnosticism. Number 7. I am tired of reading this garbage. Okay. This is a peer-reviewed article from a very prevalent philosopher with a PhD from Purdue. And to you, this is garbage. This is why nobody will ever take you seriously. Ever, because you don't understand the topic, and you call somebody who wrote one of the most well-read papers. I don't know anybody who goes to SEP that hasn't read atheism on that site. It's just, I mean, it's the most cited thing out there in the great debate community, and he just thinks it's garbage without any understanding of it. He thinks that ontologically you can have more than 2 states on God existing. I mean,
what?
Come on.
What degrees or accolades does Timeshark have to put him in a place to tell a philosopher that he's wrong in philosophy?
Yeah, I don't think he has the high school education on this. And then he says, I dodged.
I mean, I'd give him a high school education, maybe a couple of college hours, but no philosophy.
Well, let me explain this again. I don't dodge legitimate questions. If you ask me why 1 + 1 doesn't, you ask me why 1 + 1 = 3, I'm going to call you an idiot and be done with you. Okay, I will answer legitimate questions, but if you don't even know enough to ask a proper question and all you're going to do is try to argue with me, then yeah, I'm probably not going to spend much time answering your questions. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to show people how these things actually are in the top and field, because I've been learning these things in order to do that. And I think I have a pretty good grasp of it. And so I'm not here to argue with them.
It's so aggravating whenever somebody comes to somebody and not only refutes them and demands clarification on your position, but they will act like they're there to listen when in fact they're just waiting for you to shut up and finish talking or finish responding so they can continue with their diatribe. They have no interest in listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, they have no active listening. I've seen that all the time. These flat earthers do that.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's why often these people don't address the question that you're asking, because they're so busy thinking about what they're going to say next.
And by the way, if you ask me a question, I'll answer it right now, good, bad, or indifferent, and then I'll get into the Flu's paper, because this is funny. But he says it's only about God until the 5th part of the essay. It's not an essay. After which time he modifies A modifier is added before the terms, meaning that both agnostic or atheist only apply to God in the mind of this author, which means Steve is using it incorrectly too when he was referring to multiple gods. What the fuck does that even mean? Draper literally says at near the end of his paper that I'll be using agnostic in this particular way, and he's going to be using it as an epistemological proposition.
Right.
So if you don't understand the difference between an epistemological proposition, a normative ethical epistemological principle, and a psychological state, you're not going to understand the paper.
Well, I actually think he breaks it down really well what he means by his usage of agnosticism. I think he breaks it down really well.
Yeah. He explains that Huxley came up with the normative epistemic principle to mean very similarly to evidentialism. He thinks that you should not be able to believe anything without the proper amount of evidence, right? And he means that more empirically, right? I don't think that an evidentialist is going to be really high into rationalism. You can give them a rational argument, but unless you have some physical evidence, which would be evidentialism, or a posteriori, something we can observe, then yeah, to an evidentialist, they're not really going to care. It's not really that convincing to them, right?
Right.
Analogical positivist would be somebody who says, well, nothing is cognitively meaningful unless it could be proven true or false. That doesn't fly very well. That was the very, very entry-level science back when. But then they realized that this has problems because it was predicated on a principle called verificationism. And verificationism is inherently flawed because verification is that you have to verify something to be cognitively meaningful. Well, how do you verify that verificationism is cognitively meaningful? It's circular. You know, you can't use it to verify itself. You can't use verificationism to validate verificationism. That was the problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same argument saying, you know, the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true.
And I want you to read this part right here, Jim, this part right here, which means that Steve is using it incorrectly. Did he not say that I was just 5 minutes ago that, I wasn't saying you were wrong?
That's a nice straw man. It's a really nice straw man.
I mean, he was just in the live chat saying that, I never said you were wrong. What does the word incorrectly mean? I'm using it right? Okay, so anyways, let's look at the paper that he quoted. By the way, let me see if I have the other screenshot here. I even tell him, I say, this shows you clearly don't have a level to understand any of this, but contains too much ineptness. I'll be using your comment in Mag's video, which is I'm doing now. I may do it. I was going to do tomorrow after Drunken Peasants because we're on Drunken Peasants, but this was just too funny. He says, you are wasting my time, dude. Do you understand that nobody gives a shit if you have time to waste? My time is more valuable than yours. It really is, because I'm trying to educate and you ain't got jack shit to do for anything. You are not educating anybody. All you're doing is causing epistemic roadblocks to people because you're ineptness. So he says, ignoring basic questions and claiming to be happy to explain things. I am happy to explain things to people that want to learn. Huge difference. Pretending that I don't have knowledge on basic concepts as a dodge. I'm not pretending. You don't. That's not a pretending. You don't. Yeah. So, I mean, he just goes on to rhetoric stuff.
What basic questions were you ignoring?
Fuck if I know. But anyways, he says, this is the funniest part. He says, for your information, I read the paper that claims those people don't agree with the definition of atheist like you. No, he's referring to SEP. I said he didn't. He literally quoted Bullivant and Flew out of SEP, right? And I asked him, you didn't read either paper, didn't you? And he's like, well, no, I read the paper. I'm like, no, you didn't. He's like, well, I read the paper that those claims came from. Well, that's SEP. I know you read that because you copied and pasted it, but you didn't read Flew and Bullivant because he's saying, well, these people disagree with you and they're philosophers. Well, actually, they don't. And I'm going to show you why. This is why I said, I know you didn't read their papers. And he's like, no, I didn't read them. I'm like, well, okay. So I said, I honestly don't believe you read either paper, and Flew 100% agrees with everything I said, you doofus. And Boulevard isn't much difference. I'll be focusing on Flew to my hangout. So let me focus on Flew here.
Timeshark, if you think that people are shitting on you and you can't do anything about it, climb in here.
I told him I was going to shit on him because this was too funny for words. This is Anthony Flew's actual paper. Okay. Read it a few times. It gets really boring near the middle and the end. Nothing of any relevance to me. But the beginning is where everything is really good. Because this is what he has to say. And now I'm just going to actually show you screenshots of the notes I took, because I don't want to have to go through the paper. Let me actually get it up for my screenshot, my notes here. And you can go validate this in the paper. I mean, that's not a big deal. Notes. Here we go. Okay, so these are my notes. I sent them to myself. Okay, so let me see. Much easier to read, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I sent these. I mean, I knew it was in the paper because I've read it before. So I just copied these a couple hours ago. Now, he says, whereas nowadays the usual meaning of atheist in English is, quote, someone who asserts there's no such being as God. Now, before we get to the rest of that, hey, Jim, how long have I been saying that that's generally the way it's used in philosophy?
You've never said that, Steve.
No, I've always yeah, no. So,
like literally every time.
I mean, this is Anthony Flew, who I think this paper sucked, by the way, but I'm going to explain to you what his argumentation was. And I got to get the live chat up so I can read what's going on here in live chat. He's arguing, now read this. I want the word to be understood not positively, but negatively. He wanted to change the most common understanding of the word to fit his opinion. Okay. Correct. So when people say, hey, Steve, you're trying to change the definition of atheism. No. My argument is I want to keep it the same as it's been for the last couple hundred freaking years, and not this American atheist. Oh, I want it to be defined in the negative condition. Right. So, I mean, would you say that this is evidence that I'm correct, that even Anthony Flew admits that the usual meaning of atheism is someone who asserts there is no God?
Correct. And he's taken the Aaron Ra approach to this with the Greek prefix and all.
Yeah, that's the next thing. But do you at least agree that he's the one?
Yes, yes, he is trying to change the commonly accepted, most established term or usage of the word atheism.
Yeah, and so when people argue with me going, Steve, that's not what the word is used in philosophy. Well, even Flew disagrees with you. And this is why when he quoted Flew, I was like, you didn't read Flew, because I was like, no, you didn't. So he says, I want the original Greek prefix a to be read in the same way atheist is customarily as is read in other Greco-English words as immoral, atypical, asymmetrical. In this interpretation, an atheist becomes not someone who positively asserts the non-existence of God, but somebody who is simply not a theist. Let us, for future reference, introduce for labels for positive atheists and the former, for negative atheists for the latter. Now, this is why this is called an etymological fallacy. If he would have asserted this is how it's used because of the Greek prefix. SEP, Paul Draper, he specifically says the word atheist, the A, is to mean not, as a negation. God exists, God does not exist. Okay? Now, Flew understood this, but he did not like that. He wanted to go back to the etymological roots. Now, that's not a fallacy, but it's a bad argument because he uses amoral here. And the problem with that is amoral is not the opposite of moral. Immoral is. Right? If you say amoral, that doesn't mean you're not moral. What it means is
amoral is just without morals.
You're not capable of having morals. A rock is amoral.
Right. So atheist would be without the belief in God, but it's not in the same way. It's you just don't have a belief. It'd be more like the I don't know, like a theological non-cog, I guess.
Yeah, but theological non-cog doesn't have a belief, but you can't call them a not theist.
Right. But when you're saying atheist, though, that's, I mean, in this, I mean, when you're comparing it to amoral, you're just talking about somebody who doesn't have a belief one way or the other.
Right. That's what he wanted it to be. He wanted it to be the negative case.
Right.
He wanted the problem with this is Bullivant argues the exact same thing. If you go read Bullivant, they want the etymology to be the usage that we have it now, but they agree that the usage is not what the etymological roots are. Even Bullivant admits that. So this is the argument that people don't understand when I talk about material facts. When I say in philosophy, atheism is not to be thought of as without gods. It is to be thought of the negation of theism. This is coherent with everything else I've ever said and the literature. Even this says that's basically what it is. He wants it to be something else. right? He wants it to be, okay, in the Greek, generally A means this. I want it to be that. But that's not how it is right now. He didn't get his way in 1972 on this, by the way. Okay, so
No,
then he says, the introduction of this new interpretation of the word atheism may appear to be a piece of perverse Humpty Dumptyism going arbitrarily against the established common usage. Think about this. This is again validating everything I said, Timeshark. Flew is even saying that atheism, common usage, is the belief that there are no gods. This is why he said this is a new interpretation. He wanted to change it.
Well, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying that you support Flu's view on this, but
Fine.
but
I
that's
don't, but
that's fine, that's great, and
that.
Anthony Flu was right in arguing it. That's fine, but you cannot say that he is wrong, or that that your usage is the only usage, because here it clearly demonstrates that that's not true.
Yeah, well, it's also clearly wrong when atheists say, well, Steve, one, you're trying to change the definition. Well, no, I'm trying to maintain status quo. And
But
two,
no,
oh, that's never
Anthony
meant
Flu was
that.
trying to.
I hate when people say, oh, well, Steve, atheism's never been the belief that God doesn't exist. No, it's always been that for the last couple hundred years.
Yes.
That's a fact. I swear to you, you can go look this up. I cannot make this up to you people.
Just because it's been used that way since you've been an atheist does not mean that is how it's always been used, nor is that saying that it is the most appropriate usage, or the most defining usage.
Oh, and by the way, don't let Timeshark say that this is the first time I interact with him. He's been somebody who's been leaving nasty comments for months, maybe even a year. So don't let him buy that bullshit. He's not some new guy that came off the street. He's been pulling this crap for ages. This is why I was like finally gonna okay, you know what? You want to do this? Let's fucking do it. Let's find me a philosopher that agrees with you. And he pulled up Flu and Bolivon. I was like, oh my god. I was laughing hysterically. I couldn't stop. So anyways, moving on. In the meantime, it should be sufficient to point out, following the present degenerate use, agnostic is one who, now Jim, read this can you read that? Please read that for me.
Having entertained the proposition that God exists, now claims to know either that it is or that it is not true.
Not to know.
Oh, now claims not to know either that it is or it is not true. Now, this is from
Flu admitting what agnosticism is, what I've always said. That is the position that you don't hold P is true or P is false.
Which he's not trying to change here. He's saying it's following. Well, wait, no, he's trying to encompass this. It looks like in this context, I haven't read the paper, but it looks like he's following the present degenerate usage. So it looks like he's trying to change.
He wants to change something else. Yeah. He wants to go back to Gnostics. If you read the paper, he wants to go take Gnosticism back to Huxley Gnostics. To mean that.
I see.
Yes.
Sure.
But later on in life, he actually changed his mind and realized that there is a distinct difference between atheism and agnosticism, and he wrote another book when he became a deist, and he no longer held this position. But I've always said that Gnosticism is pretty well common. That is somebody who doesn't believe the proposition is true or false. It has nothing to do with knowledge. None of this has to do with knowledge, right? What they see is they say not to know, right? Claims not to know either that is true or false. And what that is this epistemic doubt. This is somebody saying, I don't have an answer to the question. I don't know how to answer it. It has nothing to do with epistemological knowledge, right? It's not saying I don't have knowledge, meaning belief that's true and justified. It's, I just don't know how to answer the question. And when you see a weak atheist, like he's trying to use the term negative atheism, which is okay, whatever. They don't know how to answer the question either. A negative atheist, one who just says, I just don't believe in God, they're agnostic in philosophy. It's the same position.
Right. I'd like to say here though that in agnostic he's only entailing agnostics as people who have been presented the proposition.
Yes, that's a critical thing actually. Yeah,
that's an issue
on a proposition you've never been exposed to.
Sure. Yeah, it's an issue.
And I'll show you one other thing. If I can find it again, because I just had it up, it's no longer there.
Was Anthony Flew a rock atheist? No.
Probably, yeah. Well, anybody who's a negative atheist, anybody who thinks that atheism is just merely a lack of belief. Yeah, here we go. All right, so let me show you this. And I'll blow it up for you. Then we're at, get the live chat here and maybe get some people in here. But he says, right here, on the contrary, in his opinion, possession of such evidence regarding the issues of this is, by the way, this is not Anthony Flu's paper. This is a rebuttal for Flu. But he says, in the case of its absence, in the relation to the question of God's existence, the only legitimate attitude is agnosticism or positive atheism. This actually was from Flu. It wasn't from this book. This is, I don't know why they cited this. I did some research on this. They cited it as there's a God, how the world's most notorious atheist changed his mind. That is true, but it's actually from a book that Anthony Flu wrote, and then they got it from that book. So this is, I think they did a secondary source here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because this is what Anthony Flu was saying. Anthony Flu was saying the only legitimate attitude should be agnosticism or positive atheism. So he
I have to agree with him.
What's that?
I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would disagree with you and say theism is rational too. You could argue otherwise, and there's a fair discussion.
Well, I mean, it's rational, but I wouldn't. But a legitimate attitude would be
theism, positive atheism, or agnosticism. That's how I promote it. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
I wouldn't even say theism, because I mean he's only pointing out things which are honest.
Oh yeah, no, actually, you know what, you're right. I'm going to go with you on this one, because he says in the case of its absence,
right,
in the relationship to the question of God's existence, the only legitimate attitude is agnosticism or positive atheism. Yes,
yeah,
I agree with that. This is, again, this came from Anthony Flu.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony Flu said, you know what? If you don't have any evidence, the only real legitimate positions to have are either be a strong atheist or agnostic. He recognized the difference that between agnosticism and atheism, and he separated them again. He actually went back on his entire argument, because before he was arguing that weak atheism and agnosticism, same thing, they both lack a belief. But now he's realizing there is a distinction here. There is a reason to have somebody say, hey, you know what? I believe you're wrong, as opposed to, well, I just don't accept what you're saying. Now, there are some problems there, which we'll get into another time, with speech act theory. It deals with what's called negation raising, which I kind of wanted to get into because, and by the way, this is the actual paper. If people want to read it. Presumption of Atheism, Anthony Flu.
I have it written down. I'm going to check it out.
Make sure I get the right stop here. So, I was going to go there. Oh yeah, but see, in speech act theory, and I've been talking to a few people on this because I'll be having a hangout with Dr. Jones on it. It's kind of accepted that when you say something like, if I say, hey, I don't think I'm going to go to the party. Okay. That really means I'm not going to the party. Right. It merely means that I believe that I'm not going to the party. So it's negation raising. It's raising the negation of merely, I don't believe I'm going to, yeah, I believe I'm not going. Right. And so that's just something in a speech act. This is what we really mean by when we say something. These are called illocutionary forces. And so people have to realize when you say certain things like, I don't do this, people will interpret that as you making a positive claim, because that's what it means in a speech condition. If I, and this is a brilliant example that Ozzy has used before, so I'm just ripping him off for this. It's cool. But if I say, hey Jim, you got the time?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What just happened there, right? You know, he answered the question, but was that my intent? Did I really give a shit whether you had the time or not? No, I want to know what the actual time is. Right.
Right.
So there's three factors here. There's the locutionary act, which is actually what I'm saying. The illocutionary act, which the intent was for this asshole to tell me what time it was. Right.
23:26 Central Standard.
And then the perlocutionary act is the effects it's had on him, that he would say, well, hey, look, you know, I know he's not asking me whether I really got the time. I know that he's really asking me what the time is, and he's going to tell. Most people would tell you the time. This is how speech works. So a normal conversation would be like, hey, Jim, you got the time?
Yes.
A normal conversation.
Yeah, it's a 23:27 Central Standard.
That's a normal conversation because he knows what I'm asking him, even though I didn't directly ask him, hey, what time is it? I was like, do you got the time? These are just speech acts. So when people say something like, you know, I don't believe, people have a right to say, well, you know what? You're actually saying to me, you believe there's no gods. Now, people can argue with that, and logically that doesn't hold. But in pragmatics and speech act theory, that does hold. It's called negation raising. You can go look it up. But and I get that a lot, actually, because I hear a lot of people when they say, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, oh, really? So you have no beliefs that there's God? Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that I believe there's no. I'm just saying I don't have belief. Oh, okay. So you're a naturalist? Oh, yeah. Supernatural is all bullshit. And I'm like, do you understand you just had a contradiction there? Because if they think that supernatural doesn't exist, they're clearly somebody who believes there are no gods. Because gods are supernatural. Yeah, so there's a contradiction there. So I think the vast majority of people, except if you're an actual agnostic like myself, I hate to throw out the word disingenuous, but I don't think they're honest actors. When an atheist says, and this is Jim's going to be, I think he's going to be leading the charge on this because he really wants to promote positive atheism and stronger atheism and rational atheism. And I'm all for standing behind him doing that. That's metaphor, not literal, Jim. Don't get excited. But when I've noticed when atheists say, well, I just don't believe in a God, I'm telling you, almost every single one of them really does hold a belief that there are no gods. They think their gods are bullshit.
Yeah.
Unless you're really agnostic. And that's in this case, great. I know a few, but I don't really I can't even remember a time where I found somebody that says, yeah, I just don't really have a belief either way. That really wasn't agnostic. They all were like, oh, well, yeah, but yeah, gods are bullshit. But I really don't have a position either way. Okay, whatever. But anyways, what do you got for live chat? Anybody, anything? By the way, question.
Making pancakes, making pancakes. Make some bacon, then you put it in some pancakes. Baking pancakes, that's what I'm gonna make. Bacon pancakes.
Was that the question?
Yeah, that's the answer.
That's the answer. I like bacon pancakes. I'll eat that.
Bacon pancakes.
Okay. So Timeshark thinks I'm dishonest. Now, let me ask the live chat here. And, you're not going to get removed or anything. Seriously. I mean, Jim's probably will, but you guys won't. What the fuck have I said in the last hour that is dishonest? I mean, this is the type of fuckery I don't deal with because I've just kind of educated people on this topic. I gave them some information they probably didn't have before. Half of you people probably never read Anthony Flew. I wouldn't expect you to, right? I'm not faulting you for it. It's a boring paper. Okay. The first 2 pages, 3 pages are cool because he actually supports what's in philosophy. Then he says, well, you know what? I want to change all this shit. But what the hell did I say that was agnostic? I mean, that was dishonest. Oh, what did he say here? Anyone who claims to know what
can't
other
think of
people are
anything.
thinking is lying. No, you can make judgment calls. Bullshit. I damn well can make a claim that I think you're full of shit. And I think you're full of shit. You bet your ass I can make those kind of claims. People do it all the time. We have people that are so goddamn dishonest that I know for a fact that they know they're lying through their teeth. You don't think Jay doesn't know he's lying?
And it's usually not based on what they think or what they believe. It's based on prior knowledge of the way that you have acted in the past or what you've said.
Yes, is exactly what it is. Do you think G-Man's an honest actor?
No, I think he's completely dishonest.
Right. Do you think Gene Esme is honest?
No, he's a fucking liar.
There you go. So when people question my integrity, you got to be out of your fucking mind. Like, seriously. That to me, it shows that you're not willing to even have an honest conversation, that you're not even taking anything seriously, and you probably don't know the topic. Because you can say I'm wrong and show me, but you cannot question my honesty, because I've done this for 6 fucking years, and I have some of the best people around come into my hangouts, people that I respect, people that I'll spend hours off air talking to. They're not going to do this with people that are dishonest. I guarantee it. So,
right.
And I read something the other day that people that are pretty low end on the IQ charts usually tend to blame other people for shit, and they usually tend to throw around words like dishonest and it's when they don't understand something, they blame somebody else for not being able to explain properly. And it's like, look, you can only explain so many things to so many people at such a level. I don't agree with Feynman's assessment that, if you don't know something so well to explain it to a 3-year-old, I guarantee it, Feynman could not explain calculus to a 3-year-old. It's not going to happen.
Right.
There's some limits to what he's talking about. He was actually talking about to his class, but that you have to be able to explain basic concepts, right? So, calculus to a 3-year-old will be like, go around the circle. Okay, go faster around the circle. I mean, I don't know how you would have, here's a line. teeter-totter on the circle. I mean, how do you explain a tangent line to a 3-year-old, right? But you're not explaining calculus to them. You know, you're just showing them pretty shapes.
Right.
No, Timeshark, I'm not pretending that you're stupid. I actually think you're stupid. There's no pretending here. I don't pull punches, and I don't do passive aggressive shit. I've read what you wrote and what you have written. I don't think you understand any of this. And when I asked you very simple questions, you didn't seem to understanding. And yet you're telling me that I'm wrong. You're telling me that I'm using these things incorrectly. You're telling Paul Draper, who is a PhD, that he's wrong. What arrogance do you have? What Dunning-Kruger do you have? Do you think that you're going to call Dr. Draper out with no understanding of the material yourself? That is what a clown car posse person does. You are definitively the atheist version of a clown car posse member.
And you're willfully going through these things and not even reading the entire paper, and probably getting this stuff from some secondhand source without even verifying that what it says is true. It's just,
well, he quoted Flew.
I mean,
he quoted Flew. He's like, well, here's SCP, which I don't think he's ever been to before, and said, oh, look, here it says Flew and Boulevard disagrees with you. Okay, well, I already knew that. I've read them before. How many times have I said, when you look at the literature, all you're ever going to find that it has a counterpoints, which, by the way, Flew doesn't disagree with how it's used, which is my argument. But the only counterpoints you're going to generally find are Flew, Martin, Smith, and Boulevard. You know how I know that? Because I've read the literature.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I know what's in it. I mean, I've actually had discussions on some of these papers and just kind of went through them with people. Smith is like, for example, like the case against God by Smith. It's just so bad. It's like the mythicist version of atheism. It's just so bad. But other books about atheism are not that bad, right? I mean, I've read some like, you know what, may not kind of agree with them, but yeah, good arguments, I guess. But not Smith. And Silverman's pretty dippy too.
Yeah, I mean I don't. It's just so. It just frustrates me how people can claim to be reasonable, but then stick to their guns when proven to be wrong. It's just, God damn it.
Are you reading the live chat? And by the way, John, I'll get you a link right now. Read what John just wrote. That's epic.
Let me see.
You know how I do this? I'll get John in right now. I told him I'd get him in for the end. He says here. He says. Timeshark posted that you were wrong, then followed it up by a post saying he never said you were wrong. Yeah, I know. I noted that. Trust me. Wrong about the definition thing. What am I wrong about with the definition? Please fucking tell me. George, can you mention my name while I'm drunk? Sure, George.
Hi, George. Oh, George. George, look at the flowers.
George's flowers for Algernon. Flowers are so pretty.
Oh, what is it? Mice and Men.
I didn't read Mice and Men. I read Flowers for Algernon, though. Not the kid that was taking the smart drug.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it was a sad story. But anyways, so what am I wrong about the definition? I'll let you field the questions, Jim. I mean, maybe you can parse it out. But good luck with that. He said,
I have no idea.
Dodge. And it's like, dude, let me tell you something. I don't dodge questions. I always give direct answers as much as possible. Anybody who's ever watched my shit knows this. It's just, again, I don't deal with derpity.
Okay,
look, people that are trying to say that a PhD is wrong without giving very good reasoning. Okay, I'm not saying that they can't be. I've done it myself, but I had very good reasons why I call people out on certain things.
Okay, Timeshark, just to get straight to the point. Right now, just say exactly what Steve is wrong about and where he was wrong about it. Just those two simple things. That's it.
There you go. See, Slicker says he said he didn't have a problem with your argument, just attitude. Well, no. He said I was wrong. He's been saying I'm wrong, and fuck my attitude. I could be. I'm going to put this on the record. Look at. People can say I'm an asshole. People can say I'm smug. People can say I'm arrogant. I don't even care anymore. All those people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't know me. But if that's the narrative they want to run, be my fucking guest. It does not affect me in any way, shape, or form. Right? What I care about is the facts. Right? And so if you want to come up with invectives for me because you cannot argue the facts, then all you're going to do is get dismissed. And it's not because you called me smug. It's not because you called me arrogant. It's because you're wasting my time because you're not addressing the facts. Anything else, I don't give a fuck. Call me those names. It doesn't bother me. I think it's funny, right? Because anybody knows me, those are just not words that have ever been described to me in 49 years of my life. But if you want to think so, hey, knock yourself out. You're allowed to do that. But what you can't do is say that I'm wrong about the facts and not give me evidence that I'm wrong about the facts, and not in a cogent, coherent way. Because when people argue that my factual things are wrong, the shit they come up with is so goddamn stupid. Like saying they're not logically before the two options of God existing or not existing.
Well,
Timeshark said, you are wrong in your assessment of my initial post that started all of this. And when you pretend to know what other people think / believe when they state otherwise, that's
parse that for me, please.
Steve.
Dude, I've been reading his writing, trying to figure it out.
I think we need Chris here for translation purposes.
Okay, so apparently, whatever his first post was, the way that you assessed it was wrong. But he's still not saying why you're wrong about this. Are you saying that he was wrong? Which part of it was wrong? I need you to be specific here. Okay, this is really dishonest with you walking around in circles.
Well, let's see here. This is one of the first things he said. This was 2 hours ago. Right. This was on my video. I left a message, right, 4 hours ago. First thing he said was, well, since you actively ignore or misrepresent what other people are saying all the time, this already starts off pejoratively. He's
saying that he's not referring to the post that he showed. I'm talking about the post he showed. What the fuck?
I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the first thing that he said on this particular post. Now, there's two posts. There's one on Bionic Dance too. We'll get to that one. But he's actually saying right here that I actively ignore and I misrepresent people. Okay, you need to demonstrate that, because I guarantee it I don't. Matter of fact, I do the opposite. I steel man people. So this already will start me into thinking this person has never watched my shit, and I know you have, or is completely dishonest. This is the second thing that I'm going for. I don't think you're an honest person. Don't think you all the time. Don't think that's sort of the par for the course. Also, isn't a little hypocritical that you start complaining about other people not understanding. Well, no, I always complain when people don't understand, when they don't understand. I've never complained Jim doesn't understand something, because Jim, if he doesn't understand something, will listen and we'll work it out. He wants to learn. And sometimes he makes very good arguments. Right. But if Jim would say, fuck philosophy. I'm not going to read any of this shit. I'm not going to waste my time with him. Right. But I don't do that to him. If I say, hey, I don't know shit about mythicism, but if you want to tell me about it, I'm happy to listen. Right. Because he's the go-to person for that for me.
But okay, the post that he's referring to is from before the ones that you're looking at.
All right, let's see here. Oh, wait, right here. Wait, I'll get down there. Go ahead. Do you want me to stop by and chat and point anything misrepresented, lied about? I'm a liar now. I've lied about things. And what's this? Or clarify the things that you don't seem to understand. Right. It must be my lack of understanding for these things, right? Clearly, the epistemic issues are on my end.
Yeah. So do you want to try again and say that you did not say that Steve was wrong? Because it clearly is like here, you not only said that he was wrong, but that he's a liar.
Liar, misrepresenting, and I don't seem to understand.
You seem like a really dishonest person to me.
Do you know how many experts have ever said, Steve, you just are too stupid to understand this? None. None. It has never happened. Now, I will admit there's certain things that I will tell them, I don't think I'm at this level yet. And they're like, okay, you'll get there. Right. But nobody's ever said, I've never had anybody that worth a shit say, hey, you don't understand this, Steve, and you're just not competent. Now, I know people they do say that about. I'm not going to name any names.
Timeshark, if you feel misrepresented, hop your shark ass in here.
Yeah, I don't give a fucking come in.
Get in the Shark Tank.
As long as he doesn't snipe.
God.
He's so dishonest. I don't trust him. But he says, look at you are dishonest. I'm not wrong. I'm not claiming you're wrong, Steve, but you're dishonest. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Oh, you're dishonest in regards to the straw men you make and other assorted fallacies you use. Oh, that's so adorable. Do you know the last time somebody called me on a fallacy that I actually committed? It was a very long time ago. I go out of my way to avoid fallacies. We all do them every so often, but when we're called on it, we go, shit. I do not straw man people. That's one fallacy I will go out of my way to make sure that I do not do. I will ask you 5 times a question to make sure that I have it right. Even on the non sequitur show, I do that. I say, hey, look, I want to make sure I'm hearing you clearly. The reason I do that is because I don't want to argue against a straw man. right? All right. So he's talking about this one.
Hey, Steve. He just accused you of argument from authority. You want to address that?
Oh, for fuck's sake, Jesus Christ! No. Go ahead. You guys want to take that one? This is Gimme. This is Gidunk. Explain to him what argument authority fallacy is.
Well, look, an argument from authority in and of itself is not fallacious.
Correct.
Because
that's called a legitimate argument from authority, right?
Right.
Argumentium ad recundium.
It's when you make an argument from authority when the authority A is wrong what they claim on the issue, or B has no expertise whatsoever in the issue you're discussing,
or C has not ever evaluated.
Right, or if the person that you are citing has no accolades in that field.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with argument from authority. I highly recommend people doing it. People need to get rid of the stigma. Okay, when you cite a paper, you use argument for authority. Nothing wrong with that.
But you can't do that, Steve. It's like evolution. You know, when people are arguing for evolution, they can't use scientific peer-reviewed papers because
yeah, exactly.
It's an argument from authority.
Miss Tree One, thank you very much. By the way, I don't recognize your name. Welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, and
yes, no,
show tonight. It was fun. We had Isaac Arthur on. I think we have Lawrence Krauss is next week. Yeah, on the 26th. So we have Lawrence Krauss coming up. Oh, hey, Misha Griffith, do you want to come in, Dr. Griffith? She said, yeah. By the way, Dr. Misha Griffith, argument from authority. I will only use her as an authority on her area of expertise, which is history.
I love her. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, the other side of what you were saying a minute ago, about theists, you can't, quote papers from, experts in evolution. But it's funny how theists have no problem in pulling all kinds of quotes from Darwin, to throw back in people's faces, as a backhanded argument from authority.
Yeah, this is definitely true. Let me go.
Well, and yeah, it's
Dr. Griffith. I'll get you in if you want to come in if you got time. But she says, yeah, basically, a argument from authority is that argument is correct only because it's coming from a particular authority. That would be the fallacy, right? An argument from authority is only a fallacy. Well, there's many different things that we could fallacy, but it is a fallacy when you say, "Hey, I'm right because such and such says I'm right." That is a fallacy.
Aposiopesis, is that a word?
What word?
Aposiopesis.
How do you spell it? What do you see it?
Aposiopiesis.
Does that mean as an against the like as a negative argumentation?
I'm not sure. Somebody said, Steve, are you upset that I said that you couldn't pronounce aposiopesis?
Oh, aposiopesis. Oh no, aposiopesis is where I use ellipses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, aposiopesis is where you like. I always use dot, right? And so aposiopesis is when you end a sentence with dot, as if people are expecting for you to say something afterwards. That's aposiopesis.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I made a comment about that this recently. So
let's look that up. That's a fun word.
I like my
new word.
Aposiopesis.
I learned a new word today. Hey, this is what Timeshark needs to do. I don't know if he's still here or not, but based on what he was saying earlier, I think that Timeshark needs to start his own Me Too movement or Time's Up movement, because Steve, you are an intellectual rapist. You are forcing your arguments and your words down other people's throats, and it's just
he's been violated.
Yeah, you violated Timeshark, and it's time for him to start his own Me Too movement.
Yeah, but
no, just look at him. He was clearly asking for it.
Lawrence, $2 super chat. Take my dirty porn money. Yeah, that's like 4 minutes of private time, isn't it? Monkey Atheist. Well, that's how you earned it. That's right.
Hey, Steve, I had somebody again today in a chat. They quoted me from my reply to them because I stated that knowledge is a subset of belief. They quoted me, and then in parentheses they put, "but in all actuality, knowledge is or belief is a subset of knowledge.
Yeah, this is stupid. I don't even know how people even think that. All right, so let me show you guys this. This is what he's referring to. Okay, so this is again, everybody knows by now me and Bionic Dan don't agree on shit. I think she's philosophically naive. I'm on record of saying that. I don't care. I have no loyalty to people when it comes to their argumentations. If they're that bad, I think she's horrible. I think she's absolutely wretched. If you want to learn philosophy from her, be my guest. Okay, but do you know how many actual philosophers go hang out with her? Zero. There's a reason for this. Okay, zero. But anyways, she kind of criticizes Cersei's video, and this none of this makes sense. It's her nothing she says about philosophy makes sense. It's like listening to somebody babble about calculus when they even hadn't even algebra yet.
He's saying that he's not talking about that one.
Whatever. Well, I am. So it's so funny. She says the problem with the philosophical version that doesn't allow for nuance. That certain mindsets can't not describe. No, the philosophical one doesn't allow for nuance. This fact that you say that anything that lacks a belief is atheist, that doesn't allow for nuance, because now you've got rid of theological cognitivism, you got rid of apatheism, you've got rid of ichtheism, you've got rid of all these other positions.
All other stupid shit.
Yeah. So, but this is another guy that's been on my nuts. And he's an outright liar, because he said, I pointed out to Steve that I'm an agnostic atheist. And he basically said I was being willfully ignorant and holding on to childish concepts, even though I explained my position in considerable detail. No, he didn't explain crap. And I was saying he's been willfully ignorant because he didn't want to go read my blog. He didn't want to go read the literature. And he didn't want to go look into the actual topic to see if it is epistemically making sense. I don't give a crap what the hell you call yourself. But when I say that epistemically, agnostic atheism in the weak case is nonsensical, there's a reason for that. You go ask an epistemologist, they'll tell you why, right? You don't have to accept it. You don't have to agree with it. I don't care, but there are reasons for that. But anyways, let's see here. By the way, hi, Dr. Griffith. Did you unmute? How are you been? You've been around for a while.
No, I've actually,
I missed you.
Jerry and I have been busy on our own show.
And it's been great. I love it.
Wait. So let me get this straight. You basically, now that you're famous and people love you and you just don't even need us anymore. I get it. I totally understand. No, it's cool, man.
No, actually, and I've also, over the past month, I've got one magazine one journal that wants me to do a review of a book that I still have to read, and I've got another journal an online journal that wants an article. So it's like this and a show and teaching 4 classes.
Wow, you're
how
busy.
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
I love it. I love it.
You will always be one of my all-time favorite guests that we ever had on.
Oh, you're too nice, Steve.
I could sit and listen to you for hours and hours and hours and hours.
You have had to listen to me for hours.
I have actually done that. Yeah. Now, if you were just making some coffee or something, that'd be great.
Gee.
Put a funny hat on, make me some coffee. But real quick, John, before one sec, can you read this? What this guy Trek said, and this is why I don't take these people seriously. Atheism is one thing, a lack of belief in gods. This is what I'm fighting against. We've just spent an hour explaining that the word is Polysemous, that the word in philosophy means the belief that gods do not exist, or at least I shouldn't say means. It's usage, right? It's most likely going to be the case. If you read a paper, that's how the word is used.
That's what Polysemous means.
That's what Polysemous means. see the dumb shits that I got to deal with? Here's a guy, he's arguing a single usage, it's the only usage, and you cannot use any other usage. This is what I've been fighting against, and this is what people criticize me of doing. They're thinking that I'm saying you have to use the philosophical definitions, which I never did. I think they're better. But is this a true or false statement? This is false. This is bullshit. This is wrong.
Yes.
This is the narrative that American Atheists has put out. This is the narrative that Atheist Experience has put out. And people are coming around now and more and going, yes, that is wrong. My mods, a lot of them know it. Lucifer Almighty, he's sick of the Atheist Experience putting out crap like this. He gets banned on the live chat if he says, "Oh, no. In philosophy, atheism is generally considered to be the belief that God doesn't exist." They've actually banned him on that. That's the point where you're literally putting out ideology and dogma. Anyways, Oh, that was my little rant for tonight. That was fun. I was really kind of laughing hysterically at this guy. And I feel bad, right? I don't like having to mock people, but I will tell you, when you come at me and you tell me that I'm a liar, I'm a dishonest, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I show the incompetence you have, I'm going to mock you. I know
Hey,
Dr. would, because that's
the
her
first
style,
point-
but
oh,
I'm not
sorry.
her. I'm not as nice as her.
No, it's hard to admit you're wrong. Period.
Sure.
Field authority.
But it's even harder to sit there and keep digging your hole and doubling down, because in the end it makes it harder to admit than it does just from the very beginning, and just accept the belief, suck it up, swallow that knot in your throat, and move on.
Hey, Steve, the guy you were reading the comments from here a minute ago was, I thought I heard that when you first started that he said something like that the philosophical definition doesn't allow for nuance.
That was Bionic Dance. I'm gonna kick your volume up a little bit, John. No, beyond Bionic Dance says that says a lot of weird things.
Well, I mean, because
she's a rock atheist. She literally thinks rocks are atheist.
Well, I mean, but doesn't philosophy? I mean, it's immersed in nuance, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, like on Twitter, somebody today said, well, atheism has uses as outside of philosophy, and I go, well, agnostic does, but what uses of atheism outside of philosophy? Give me an example. And they're like, I just did. Lack of belief. I'm like, belief is philosophy. It's epistemology. They don't really think ahead on this stuff, right? They didn't get that. And I was like, dude, no. Look at, you're literally saying it's lack of belief. Philosophy.
Man, you just really need to just debate somebody and get this shit out of your system, because I'm really.
Yeah, no, this guy Dan and I are going to debate on. We're going to debate on.
I am so tired of repeating
can I make a
same
prediction?
shit over and over again.
Can I make a prediction?
That he's going to back out.
No, he's not going to back out. But I will say right now, I'm going to cream him.
Well, I honestly think that after he does his research, he will concede that you're right. That is my prediction.
Hopefully. But I mean, what the most he could bring to the table is a dictionary, and if he does even decide to do any papers like flu, I've already read all these things. I know what's in them. I know the counters.
Sure.
And I'm going to just inundate him with how these things are generally thought of, and with diagrams and pictures, because they're really cool.
I love pictures.
You've never seen me debate outdone? I've done 2. Well, technically, I've done 3 debates. I guess we count.
I guess not.
You didn't see my debate with Wade Fairmore?
I don't think so.
Oh, it was brutal. I mean,
I'm gonna check that out. Well,
2 hours
is it
later,
on
he
Great
came back
Debate?
and said, shit, Steve, you're right. That's a pretty good
Wow.
debate. Not only did he say, not only did he say I was right, a month later he left Young Earth Creationism. I prepared 2 weeks for that debate. Yeah,
Very impressive.
Didn't you debate Matt
Ronnie?
Slick too?
No, I didn't debate Matt Slick. I just went on his channel, explained to him, dichotomy. But I wish I would have done that differently. I noticed I didn't make horrific mistakes, but I could have been a little clearer. What I know now, I would have done a lot better job. But I did debate Ronnie to empiricism, but that video got deleted, unfortunately. But I kicked his ass too because he left in the middle of the debate. He said he didn't want to continue.
Rage quit?
No. Well, I wouldn't say rage quit. He more like he was realizing he was getting trounced. He was arguing that ATP synthase was like a turbine. Well, I happen to have worked on turbines, and I know a little about turbine theory, and I know a little about ATP synthase because I took biology in college. And so I made 2 presentations, one on turbine theory, explaining how turbines work to the audience, and the other one explaining how ATP synthase worked, and that the fact that it worked at a proton motive force is not the same thing as a fluid. Turbines work on fluid energy. You convert fluid energy into mechanical energy. ATP synthase has a differential of hydrogen ions across the membrane. That's not the same thing. And he didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. Right. And so he just was like, I'm just done with this. And he left. And then he's like, well, I was just kind of bored in that debate, and I was tuning my guitar. And so I was like, yeah, okay, Ryan, you got your ass handed to you.
So look, just let me take 10 seconds here and get my
for
fanboy moment out of the way. Dr. Misha, I love you. Yeah, I love you, and you are one of my all-time favorites. I wish that Non Sequitur would have you on like weekly.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
I'm hoping to put together something for you guys before the end of February, but
Please.
it's been crazy for me.
Did any of this have to do with your appearances on the show?
Oh, no. Oh, you mean my craziness?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know.
Hmm.
The two things the two things outside of my work that people want me to do just came out of the blue. Totally.
Has anybody recognized you? Has anybody said, "Hey, I recognize you"? Hey, you were on the Non Sequitur show.
Actually, people have recognized my husband.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But you've been
So
on
that
more
was
than
really
he has.
cool. I know, but he's so cute.
Yeah, he's adorable.
Listen to Steve name dropping his own show.
Okay. Yeah, somebody's got to promote it. Nobody else does.
Well,
I'm never going to
you
get
know-
recognized. I swear to God. I hang out with Brittany Simon, right? And she goes to these conventions, and she goes out of states and stuff like that. And people will recognize her, right, at the airport. And hey, yeah, you're from YouTube. And I'm like, well, I have a kind of a distinct look, but I don't go anywhere where anybody would ever recognize me.
Well, here I'm gonna recognize you right now, Steve. Now this question goes to Jim and Misha. Would you, the two of you, say that Steve has an above average expertise in philosophy and logic?
No,
Sure.
No,
not by any
no
stretch.
question. No question.
No, you guys are full of shit.
No.
Okay, let me, and I'm not trying to be disparaging here. I'm really not. Please. By the way, if it was somebody in the audience, yeah, Dr. Griffith is a history PhD in history. But no, to have an expertise, you have to have a very in-depth proficiency. I'm nowhere near that. I don't even have a master's level. I have some classes that were level 400, some classes that were designed to be a master level thing, system instrumentation and some other things, but I didn't finish my degree. I have enough credits for a bachelor's. I have no expertise in a goddamn thing. I learned philosophy on my own. I only took one philosophy course in college, which was contemporary rhetoric and based upon logical fallacies. That's one thing that I do know pretty well, because I actually took a logical fallacies in college. So that one I do think I know decently. But these are not expertise, right? These are just, you have a foundation. I like to think that I have a foundation.
Wait. Did you get my last email on this
I
topic?
did. I disagreed with you, but I didn't send it.
Well, that's okay. But
Yeah.
let me put it to them real quick. Okay, what I say is that expertise is subjective and a matter of perspective. Okay, because and the example I gave to Steve was, consider a basketball coach. There could be a coach that's coaching a high school team, and he could be very proficient in coaching that team, and the people he's coaching will think that he's an expert, but that same coach might not have the proficiency to coach a pro team. So what I'm saying is that Steve has a level of expertise in the subject. I'm not saying he's the end all be all.
I disagree, because you're not even taking the players into perspective here, what the coaches had to offer.
How about this? I'm thrilled if somebody just says Steve's not inept at the topic, and I'm really serious about that. There are some topics I am inept on. Geology, I'm inept.
Yes, but inept means basically clueless. Maybe you know a few fundamental principles, but other than that, you're basically clueless.
Very well. I should know a lot better,
But Steve, I'm a huge believer in repetition, and that's what you're doing all the time. You're thinking. And not only just thinking about what is happening and listening to what is happening, you're anticipating. And that is such a difficult skill to learn, and you've nailed it. You're just going to keep going further and further. I have seen you grow in the past, because I've been watching you for about a year now, and I've seen you grow so much. Pardon?
Yeah, we call that stalking.
Oh, no.
I'm making the argument because, from my perspective, I'm light years behind your understanding, probably even Jim's understanding.
Of what?
Jim knows, like his knowledge of the Bible is superb, right? I don't have anywhere near. I can't touch him on that kind of stuff. But that's what I love about this community. We all have things that we know we're passionate about, and we all come to the table, and we have how many hundreds and hundreds of people now involved with the Non Sequitur show, 25,000 subs. And
it's up to 25,000 now.
Yeah, and we're going to be 60,000 by the end of the year easily. I mean, I won't even be a sweat probably. And so that's what I want to build. I want to build a community of people that, you know, you have your little niche. This happens to be mine. I happen to be an interest in epistemology. And I think I can explain it halfway decent. So when people say, well, you know, Steve doesn't understand, you need to give me a goddamn reason, because I talk to actual epistemologists in real time, like one-on-one off air, and nobody's ever said that. We have very good conversations. As a matter of fact, they're like, you know, surprised that I don't have a degree. They're like, you know, so, you know, where'd you get your philosophy degree? And I'm like, oh, I never even took a course besides one thing in critical thinking. And they're stunned by that.
Well, you're making my argument. You're making my argument for me, then, Steve, with what you're saying.
How I just learned this stuff. I just read. I mean, I have a natural aptitude to it. Maybe I'll admit that. I think philosophy. I didn't think I ever would, but I enjoyed. I really like learning stuff about philosophy.
I just want to adjust Timeshark's comment. He says that Steve doesn't converse. He attacks and insults. Steve has not once attacked or insulted me. You know, at some point, Steve and I's our conversation had to have begun at some point. Our relationship, so to speak.
We didn't agree on much when we first met. Actually,
no, not at all. Yeah. We disagreed pretty much every time we spoke with each other, but there was no insult hurled from either person. So maybe it's something that you're doing wrong. Maybe you need to think about, you know, well, what did I do, and how can I reapproach this? I mean, maybe this is a moment for you to kind of change the way that you're approaching people.
Yeah, well, let me relate that to myself. Okay, sure. When I first started watching Non-Sec, I was always in the chat accusing Steve of being a pedant.
Yeah,
always, you know, okay. Now check this out. Now then I started really listening. Okay, and then now it's just a joke to call him a pedant. Okay, there are things I understand now that I did not understand months ago, because I listened to what Steve and the experts that Steve has on his show had to say, instead of thinking of it as pedantry.
And that's just any topic, though, right? I mean, you get a biologist on and you say something like, you know, like Nephilim free, for some strange reason, he always goes around saying that DNA is comprised of amino acids. Now, people that know biology don't really, they're like, what does that mean? Well, it means he's an idiot. Okay, DNA is comprised of monomers that are called nucleotides. Okay, amino acids, what you find in proteins or peptides. Basic biology that anybody's ever had first year biology is probably going to know this. Okay, but Nephilim tries to act like he's the intellectual genius of YouTube. He actually was cited, and you can go look at this. This is the truth. He's cited on Conservapedia as a science expert.
What? By whom? Who in the hell wrote his page?
Kent Hovind wrote it.
Conservapedia is a really left-wing, young earth creationist, you name it, conspiracy-loving site. But that's their go-to guys, Nephi. And so here's a guy that's Nephi. He's complaining. You know, he reads papers that he doesn't understand. I told you guys the other night, and Dr. Griffith, maybe you weren't here, but are you familiar with the Robertsonian translocation? Does anyone ring a bell? Okay, translocation is basically you just have parts of one gene or parts of one chromosome go to another chromosome. Okay, and a Robertsonian is a very specific type that can only happen on, I think it's 5 different types of the chromosomes. I don't remember the numbers though, but there's basically no detrimental effects if there's no loss of genetic information. It's basically just it's on a different location. It's like having a hard drive, right? As long as the data is there and it knows how to index it. It doesn't matter whether it should be a little fragmented, but it's not going to do anything detrimental. Now, if it's missing information, then the hard drive's screwed, right? The program's not going to work right. The gene's not going to work right. So a translocation that just doesn't have loss of information doesn't matter. You can have things all over different chromosomes. This has to know where to find it. And so we were trying to explain this concept to Nephilim free. Well, Nephilim free, he found a paper. And it was actually Saka County he was talking to this particular time. And he found a paper, and the paper was like detrimental effects of translocations on wildlife. And the paper was actually about translocations of wildlife from one region of habitat to another because of fire. Had nothing to do with genes. Absolutely nothing. And we're like, did you even look at the paper past the heading? And he's still, you can listen to, I have to find this video. It's out there somebody. I know somebody has it. But
there was the, I
it's
remember
hilarious.
watching was a Red's Rhetoric had the day that one of the flat earthers spent an entire 20 minutes talking about Michel Foucault when they were trying to talk about Foucault's pendulum. And of course, that was Louis Foucault,
yeah,
I've had 100 years.
That was actually Red's Rhetoric, and I think it was Nathan. Was it Nathan Thompson?
And Michio Kaku.
Yeah.
No, who was that? It was I remember that episode. I watched that.
Was it Nathan Roberts?
No, it was oh my goodness, what is his name? Which I wanted to
Nathan Oakley.
Nathan Oakley. It was either Nicholas Oakley or the other guy.
No, I don't think it was Nathan, but
okay,
it was. I was just in stitches because I've read so much Michel Foucault. It's like, no, he wouldn't have done this.
John Sleeping Warrior. That's his.
Yes.
Yeah, but what's his actual name? I don't. He goes by Sleeping Warrior. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Anthony Riley. Thank you.
Anthony Riley. Yeah.
Anthony Riley. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they think Foucault's pendulum doesn't work during eclipse for some reason too. With Kaku on non-tech yet? No, we haven't reached out and missed Kaku. Maybe one of these days after we get.
That'd be great.
After we get Krause on, maybe.
And Neil deGrasse.
Krause. Well, I was supposed to hang out with deGrasse Tyson last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was supposed to hang out, and I was invited to be on the panel. Yeah.
I've heard flat earthers make the argument that they say Foucault's pendulum is debunked because now I forget where it's at, but there's a really big one in some museum, and it has an electrical motor in it, right. But not to operate it, but so that somebody doesn't have to periodically go in and get it moving again.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, well, it's running by a motor. And it's like, no, it's not.
So I guess Timeshark is just having a little bit of a, crisis. He's like, the great irony is this: while all you pat him on the back, there are many people who don't watch him because of his attitude in regards to a specific topic. You know what? I'm glad about that. I don't want those people watching Timeshark. I'm not here for those people. I'm not one of those people that wants to cater to the base level of YouTube. That's not my interest, right? If you want that, you can go watch 1,000 other channels. I don't mind, right? I really don't. I want the people to come to this channel that want to learn something, and I'm culling the other ones. I'm cultivating people that want to come in and have great conversations. Like you guys watched last night when I had Nick on. Oh my God, that was great. People would love that conversation. Even Ozzy was like, "Hey, who is this dude? He's great." I had somebody left a message. This is one of my favorite top 5 videos you've ever done. We had a great conversation. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to cater to somebody like Timeshark who for some strange reason doesn't think they know what the hell I'm talking about and rather argue. And you saw what you saw what he wrote. Does that sound like a rational rational retort to anything? No, he clearly doesn't know the fucking topic.
Well, and he said it. He said it all at the end there, and what we read that he posted, because of his last comment was that contained in it that he didn't even finish reading the paper.
Exactly. So, yeah. And my attitude, I don't care. Again, I could be a dick. I'm like, Red's Rhetoric is like the biggest asshole I know. He's also my best friend too. I love Red. I would take a bullet for that guy. Right. I mean, but he's an asshole and I love him for it. So I don't give a shit if somebody's an asshole, or as long as they can back it the fuck up. But Milwaukee Atheist Lawrence says, his informal creationist-based education has allowed him to be free from any forms of bias inherent in modern scientific text. Conservapedia on Nephi. Also, I saw what you said, Jim. Your move. Yeah, I wasn't kidding. Conservapedia. That's what they said about Nephi, dude. His informal creationist-based education has allowed him to be free from any form of bias inherent in modern scientific text. You know what that's code for? His informal creationist education has made him be an idiot. That's what I read. The day somebody says, "Hey, Steve, Nephi's smarter than you," that's when I'm going off air permanently.
Hey, Hey, and you know what? And Kent Hovind was a science teacher too.
For 15 years. People, you know what? People are just finding out that I wouldn't say I debated him, but that I put him in his place 4 years ago. People don't remember that. They didn't know that. They're like, wait, Steve, you've known Kent that long? Oh, yeah. And 4 years ago, I got him to admit that some of his arguments were flawed.
4 years ago, what did you go into the prison on visiting day?
No, it just was like right out of, he was just out of prison in 2015. And True Empiricism had a hangout and he invited me, and I just wrecked Kent. I was like, hey, Kent, let me show you what I got here. And he couldn't deny it. He was like, okay, I got these claims from ICR or something. And I was like, so you didn't do your due diligence. Okay. Are you going to use them any longer? He's like, well, I can't go back in time and change the handbook. I'm like, okay, I agree. You can't time travel, but going forward, will you be using these claims? Now, I asked him last month, is he still using these claims? And he claims that he isn't, but I don't believe him because, one, they're still on his DVDs. And you don't know what he does behind the scenes. You don't know when he goes to these Baptist churches, what he preaches. So I don't believe him. I really don't. I still think he knows it's wrong and he still uses it.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think all the sycophants that are sitting there when he makes a video laughing in the background, you think he corrected himself to those people?
No, I don't think he ever corrects anything. No, Hovind is a con man. Straight up con man. That's it. Yeah.
Well, and there's also, once you get to the low level of sycophants, they're not listening anymore. They're just accepting. And Kent could change what he's going to say, and they would still nod and still laugh and not realize that that's not what he said on Tuesday. Really?
Right. Well, and you see that a lot in churches. You know, they will take something from the Bible, and it's actually several verses from several different places in the Bible, and use it in a context that suits their narrative, whether for their homily or in Catholic Church or for whatever. But in order to give their sermon some more meaning, and they can come back the next Sunday and he'll be talking about something completely else, not the next Sunday, but a few Sundays later, and he will use the same verse in a different context.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt that. I know we're going to harp on this, but this is the fuckery I deal with all the time. This is why I don't bother responding to most people. And I'm just going to tell this guy, go watch my video, because I don't have the time to go through 3 paragraphs of stupid shit. Okay. But let's just go through it. And Jim, pretend you're me. I know you want to be.
Oh, geez.
You know?
Okay.
Okay,
wait. Hang on.
My mind,
Okay.
your body, we'd be like, damn, no, you're smart. You're smart. So he said,
I don't know if I can handle the ego.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. By the way, I know what you used to do. Don't go there. Okay.
Boy, I so want to know what that means.
No, you don't.
You don't. Nothing illegal. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. At least it's not in most states. He says, do you not think that atheists should be able to identify what is to be an atheist? Okay, Jim, how do you think, anyway, how would I answer that question?
No, I do think that atheists should be able to identify what it is to be an atheist.
Same with me. Right? Why does somebody ask that kind of question when I've always said identify with the hell you want? Okay. I mean, it's easy. They're not understanding this. Forget your old dictionaries and philosophy books for a minute. Okay. Well, I'm citing things that are like 2017, 2018.
And no dictionaries.
And they're encyclopedias. I have one dictionary I cite. It's the Oxford Dictionary. But it's the Oxford Dictionary of Philosophy.
Don't cite dictionaries, Steve. That's bad.
Don't do what?
Don't cite dictionaries. That's bad.
If it's a dictionary of philosophy, I don't have that much of an issue.
Dictionaries are bad. Okay.
Here.
Okay.
Words have usages and words change. Oh, tell me something I don't know, Trex. Jesus. Okay. I mean, have I heard that one before? Yes, that's right. Words have usages. They don't have inherent meaning. I've said the same thing. If you look up American Atheist and see how what is arguably the premier atheist organization in the country identifies as an atheist, you'll find, okay, let me explain to you something, Tex. I happen to be friends.
If you look up American Atheist.
Yeah, I happen to be friends with the editor of American Atheist. Her name's Pam Whistle. Okay, she's the editor-in-chief. Okay, she has even told me when people bring this up to tell them Stop using American Atheist as a philosophical citation. It is not.
Is this the same guy? This text trick?
No, but they're on the same. It's the same video. It's on Source's video. So
Well, you can say that the CEO of Atheist Republic says that's wrong.
there you go. And Atheist Republic is bigger than American Atheist, and I support American Atheist Republic because
I support American Atheists. They do a lot of good, but they also promote a lot of bad bad information.
Do better. I'm not against American Atheists. I just think they can do better.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. And I believe that Atheist Republic can do better too, and that's what we're striving for.
But notice she said there's two goals for American Atheist. One, normalization of the word atheism, and two, to have as many people have that label. That's it. They don't care about being accurate. She's even said this is not a philosophical site. Don't quote them as philosophical site. I could be 100% right about the philosophy. They have an agenda. So when they say atheism is one thing, a lack of belief in God, that's only their position. That is not how it is anywhere else in literature. That is not how it is in philosophy. That is not how it is if you go read a paper. That's certainly if you take a course in it. That is not what they're going to teach you.
Yes, and atheism. I can't even wait for you to highlight it. Atheism is an affirmative belief that there is no God. I don't give a damn what you say. That's
what it has been for hundreds of years.
What else would you call that?
This is the argument that a lot of the more philosophical atheists, ones that actually have like college degrees in philosophy, they don't understand, and I agree with them, why people want to even define it as a lack of belief, except for they want to avoid having a burden of proof. That's it, which is silly.
Arguments like this make my butt itch.
I've been banging my head against the wall, trading comments with this person. I can't make him understand that if you disbelieve something, there's a secondary belief position. You are when you say you disbelieve something, you are saying that you believe something.
Yes, I mean, disbelief means that you believe the opposite. So if I say I disbelieve you, I'm saying that I believe that what you're saying is false. And this is where Matt Dillahunty screwed up. I wrote a blog on this if you guys read it recently. And I have talked to numerous people that know logic. Not one of them disagrees with me. Okay?
Apparently now Timeshark doesn't disagree with you. He hasn't never disagreed with you. He just disagreed with your attitude now. So are you just say that you were wrong for fuck's sake?
I'm a liar. I'm a straw manner. I use fallacies and I'm dishonest. But I wasn't wrong. Oh, I mean correctly. But to be clear, atheism is not a disbelief or God or denial of God. It's a lack of belief in God. This is a wrong statement by American Atheists. I've had a whole video on American Atheist where I call them out for this. This is Silverman's agenda. Silverman wanted to change the definition to this, and he called up dictionaries. He had people actually try to call the dictionary and have it changed. A couple of them were. But this is not what atheism means in a philosophy. Never has been. Actually, the original thing for atheism was Romans. The Romans that denied the Christians that denied the Roman God. They were called atheos.
Right, because they didn't believe in their gods.
Yes. So this notion that atheism has always been just a lack of belief, nope. It's a lie.
And still, but I don't even want to appeal to the etymology of the word for validation, because it goes beyond that. It is the most widely accepted philosophical term, and it very well defines what atheists are. The colloquial usage of atheist is not very well defining. It is entirely vague, and I would think that when people are wanting to define their beliefs, sure, you can refer to it in the vaguest term possible, but if you're wanting to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, you are either atheist, agnostic, or theist, or
for the most part,
you can possibly be something else in between. But I believe most of that's bullshit.
I would say that 95% of people out there are going to follow that category. But see that's how atheists are defining atheism. I got 3 atheists in here. I don't think any of them is going to find it that way.
No. Now I did at one time, and it's because I did not realize that the usage that I was using was so encompassing and so broad and generalizing. But now that there are benefits to using, and I argue that the colloquial usage, the vague and broad and very blanketing usage of the term atheism for the purpose of normalizing atheism.
That's not a bad argument. That's for you.
Right. But if you want people to understand what you believe, you need to use words that accurately describe what you believe.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not a bad argument. I don't think it's. I think it's backfires. I think that by doing that, it actually has a negative effect. But you can at least argue that, right?
Well, the label's already been applied, so there's not really anything we can do to it. We can either focus on shaking the label, or we can focus on normalizing the label. I think we need to focus on the latter.
That's a goal you have, and so your goal will mandate what you think is the best utility to get there. And I don't got a problem with that. But he says, so now you've come along and complained they've got it all wrong because your philosophy books define it as something completely different. I'm not saying they've got it wrong. I'm not saying the colloquial is wrong. What Jim just said is a perfect way to say it. It's not precise. It is vague. It's not wrong. It's just vague. There's sensu lato and sensu stricto and the sensu strictissimo. When you say atheism is just a lack of belief, that's sensu lato. It's in the broadest case. The reason they want broad is because it encompasses more people. That's it.
You speak Latin so sexily, Steve.
I hate my Latin. The sensu stricto means in the narrow sense, and it's going to be much more precise. In science, you're never going to have a person argue for sensu lato. It never happens. They always want a very precise definition in science. So I argue, well, why not have the same rigor in philosophy then? That's all. You don't have to accept it, but I don't see why there's any difference. If you're going to accept precision in one field, why have ambiguity in another?
Yeah.
And he says, are you trying to keep people ignorant by educating them in incorrectly and outdated material? This is the dumb fuckery that I deal with. I quote things from 2017. 2017 is not outdated. Okay.
Steve, that's 2 years old.
Yeah. I mean, up to 5 years is considered current.
But then again, there are many philosophy papers out there that are still considered standard, that are just rewordings of decades old philosophies.
Yeah. Well, and also, we definitely know people that are members of the American Atheist. I mean, Matt Dillahunty's on the board of American Atheist. But you see how many times they're going to put out stuff like this? Like, I haven't read any of that before. Like, it's something new to me. Get new arguments, people. This is why I'm not going to waste my time with those people any longer, because I've heard all these arguments before. They're crap then, they're crap now. And if you think you're telling me something that I haven't heard before, then you clearly have not been paying attention.
So was that an atheist that you were reading?
Yeah, that was from Cyrus's video. Yeah. My middle name is Triggered. Yes. Yeah. And this is called passion. This is not being triggered. This is called, I really want people to learn this shit. And I'm tired of people dumbing people down because they don't have the wherewithal to go look stuff up to see if it's true or not. If you don't care what's true or not, then I really don't want to have a discussion with you. I want people to think, I want to know what is true. And if they can demonstrate that I have a false belief, I'm happy to say, God damn it, you're right. I had a false belief, and revise my belief.
Steve, I just figured out a new theme song for your channel. My agnostic has a first name, it's Steve. My agnostic has a second name, it's MCRAE. He suspends his belief in God, and if you ask him why, he'll say,
because there's no evidence either way.
Oh shit!
Oh, man.
Love it.
Who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, I'll be a full-on strong atheist. Who the fuck knows, right? I have to be able to justify to myself, and I have to work through those things because I want to have a strong epistemic framework. I want to be very rational in my beliefs. That's all.
And I think we all agree we don't want people just accepting things, just accepting labels, just accepting definitions. We want them to be tearing them apart. We want them to be looking at them thoughtfully and really coming to their conclusions in a rational way.
Well, that's why I tell Jim too. Great, somebody adopts the name of atheism. Does it really do anybody any good if they don't really,
Right.
change their beliefs at all, or
Right. Well,
modify what they believe, or it's just a name thing? I don't really see a point to that.
and it's the same argument that I know that I use against theists. Is always ask them, well, why do you? I try to get down to, why do you believe what you believe, and is there a good reason for you to believe it? Like, what is your justification, and do you believe that your justification is good enough? Because I believe that most people that hold these beliefs, they don't know why they believe it. They can't tell you exactly why they believe it. And once they can tell you that, I believe that that's something that's very, very revealing, but it's just getting people to be able to mirror back upon themselves.
Yeah,
You're
and
practicing. You're practicing street epistemology, Steve. That's what you, or Jim.
In a way.
That's what you
In a way,
just.
yeah. But I mean, if you could convert more people to have a very strong positive position, I think Jim would be very pro that. I would be okay with that too. I would much rather see a bunch of atheists that have very strong positions that can argue with them very well than people just going, well, I don't believe you. I just like a belief in God. Yeah, you're not going to really have my attention for very long. I want to know why you believe what you believe. Mrs. Spectral Fire. Steve is a non-theist. Yes, that's a phrase that doesn't bother him because you can only be a theist or a non-theist. There's no other ontological possibilities. So why would it bother me? That's logical. But when you say up front that you use atheism interchangeably with non-theists, he's suddenly upset because it's not logical to do so. You're making a false dichotomy in that condition. It's like reinforcement stigma. No, it's the fact that you are making a deliberate false dichotomy, which you can do. It's more of a disjunction, but then you're forcing it upon other people. That's why I take umbrage, right? If you want to do that for yourself and the groups that you're in, be my guest. But you cannot do that and apply it to other people. That's just dishonest. Why would somebody be upset to be called a non-theist? If you're not a theist, guess what? You're not a theist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Non-theist is what you. Whenever you're using atheist in the colloquial sense, that's all that you're saying. That is a direct synonym.
Yeah. Yeah. And people that want to use a colloquial definition, go ahead. But it's like, to me, don't get bitchy when a creationist says, well, I'm just using the colloquial definition of theory, so evolution is just a guess. It's the same thing. It really, the frick is. Well, I'm talking about scientific theories. It doesn't matter. You don't see the problem there. It's the same type of argument.
Timeshark, it is confusing, and the reason that it's confusing is because it is not defining. It is a generalized term. Whenever you say atheist, you have to follow that up with clarifiers. You have to follow that up with, I am an atheist, but I'm agnostic, or I am an atheist, but I'm a positive atheist.
If everybody had one formal thing, it would be all easier. I know exactly your position when you said atheist. You believe there's no God. Sure. Okay, great, done.
Sure. Well, what's wrong with just saying you're a non-believer? That's pretty damn.
That too. It's really script, though.
But that's pretty damn direct, though. Somebody says, "Do you believe?"
No,
I'm a non-believer.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, well, non-theist would be the same thing, but it's just very big, right? Sure. But I'm a non-believer. Yeah,
it makes it a bigger umbrella too.
I think so too, actually.
No bigger than atheism.
Yeah.
The colloquial usage.
Yeah, but I think
because non-believer would also entail agnostic.
Yes.
So does the colloquial usage of atheism.
Right, but see, we're not going to take umbrage be called a non-believer because either you're a believer or not believer. That's sound logic. Saying you're a theist versus atheist is not. It doesn't have to be that way. That's a false dichotomy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I had an atheist today try and argue with me that
atheists, by the way,
that atheists aren't that all atheists don't say that they believe there are no gods. That most atheists, he was trying to say, would answer the question, does God exist, with I don't know. And I tried to explain to him, well, no, then you're agnostic.
Yeah, it's agnostic.
I mean, and he wasn't getting it. Like I said, and he's saying, I don't know. He himself is saying, I don't know. And I said, well, then, dude, you're not an atheist. You're an agnostic. And
so David Lewis says, is there a word for Matt Dillahunty's position? He is a strong atheist. So we just call it atheist. He is an atheist in any sense of the word. He actually believes there's no God. He won't say that often on the atheist experience because he wants the theist to do all the work. And I'm not going to even fault him for that. I would too if I had a show where, you know, I don't want to spend my time defending my beliefs. I want to know what your beliefs are. So I don't blame him for that on the show, but he's out somewhere else. Then yeah, then he needs to,
Well,
he can actually
well,
say atheism. He's done it before. I've listened. He has good justification.
well, as pardon me, as an atheist, before I'm debating somebody, especially if they are of the Abrahamic faith, I do always ask them clarification, just because there is so much ambiguity within their different positions and the different sects. You know, I want to make sure that they don't have the ability to wriggle out of the conversation, because they're really good at that. If you don't get them to define their position and their belief and their whole general, you know, dogmatic framework, then you have at least so much potential for them to just slip away from your defenses to their assertions.
And dude, I'll hold theists to the feet to the fire just as much as I will an atheist when they use stupid ass arguments.
Sure.
You know I will. But you know, you got to kind of police your own. Matter of fact, when I put my blog out showing people that Matt was actually in the wrong for telling a caller that he was using disbelief incorrectly, I didn't get as much pushback as I thought. Most of the pushback was, well, why don't you just tell Matt that? It wasn't, hey, Steve, you're wrong, because even they had admit my evidence was overwhelming. And there's just no real logical argument to be had. Disbelief is the belief that gods don't exist. And they're like, well, Steve, why are you posting it here? It seems like you have a vendetta against Matt. I'm like, no, somebody sent this to me. I critiqued it, and he had an error, and he blocked me. He doesn't want to talk to me. Why do I care? You know, I'm not here to convince Matt Dillahunty. If I convince the rest of the people and they go, hey, Matt, Steve's got a point here, you know, this is what disbelief is actually, then that's great. But why do I have to go to Matt and say, hey, Matt, I think you messed up here? He's just going to say, so who the fuck cares to me? Because, you know, we're not on great terms.
Do you think that Matt blocked you because of the fact that
I know
that he may have an agenda to push his, you know,
I have
definition
no doubt in my mind. He blocked me because Twitter's not the place to have the type of arguments that he knows I can have with him, and it just would have been a cluster, and he wasn't willing to have it on Twitter. That's it. I mean, he wants to have very simple, get in, get out, done. And I'm sorry, my arguments are not your ordinary, one of the mill, you know, cheap theist coming in and saying, hey, you know, I have an argument for God, and then run the Kalam or something.
And he's got a show to run.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a limited framework that he has to work in. So he's not going to be able to deal with the nuances that you really want to do.
Right.
Deal with.
And I'm okay with that. But so when people say, hey, why don't you call in the atheist experience? I'm like, why? What good would that do? One, you don't have a free will platform there. And two, he's not going to be able to address the actual arguments because he's already strawmanned me. He went on 4 different channels and strawmanned my arguments. Yeah, at that point, I'm not really that interested because he's already shown. He's never come to me. He has my email. We've corresponded email before. He could have written me anytime and said, hey, Steve, I've heard this is your argument. Can you clarify it for me? I don't want to strawman you. Nope. Didn't do it. So.
Has he ever been on non-sec?
Yes.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. He's been on non-sec. And also I had a chance to talk to him about agnostic atheism. He thinks agnostic atheism in the weak case is nonsensical. And I agree with him. But I again, because I go against the narrative that they've had for years that Atheist Experience has been putting out to atheists, you know, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but I'm a threat to them. I have no doubt about it. But that's okay. I don't mind that. The thing is I'm a threat that can back my shit up.
Back it up.
Back that shit up, baby. That's all matters. I don't give a crap about ideology. I'm not here to promote atheism.
Oh shit.
If you can back it up, that's whatever happened to the evidence.
If you can back it up, get on with it. Do it. Back it up.
Oh, Dave Lewis responded to my
Back
question.
it up, Chrissy. I mean,
We need a gif of that, man.
Back it up.
Of
David
Steve,
said-
back it up.
You don't see that. Dave Lewis, the position of colloquial atheist, you can call that non-theism, I suppose, but I would think colloquial atheism at least comes with the idea that you've already examined theistic claims. Well, yes. In fact, Anthony Flew in his paper talks about that. That an atheist has evaluated the proposition, and so the colloquial atheist is literally just saying the same thing an agnostic says. Hey, I've evaluated the evidence, but I don't see a good reason to believe either way, really. To make it very, very simple, I think it's a little more complicated than that. But basically, the evidential agnostic says, yeah, I got no evidence either way to make a decision. That's all a weak atheist is doing. But my argument is, I think that most weak atheists are fooling themselves. Most of them actually do hold the belief that God doesn't exist. They just want to admit it. That's where Jim comes in. Jim wants to convert. He's not giving a shit about the agnostic. He wants to convert the guy sitting there going, well, yeah, I just don't really believe in gods. No, he wants to convert that to somebody who says, I believe gods don't exist. Let me to fucking tell you why they don't. I think that's what Jim wants to do, and I don't blame him for that.
I mean,
Jim's
yeah,
a hard man.
Yeah, and that's not anything.
Usually. What?
Oh, I got a couple lately saying, "Oh, that's anti-theism." I'm like, no.
No.
Don't get confused by that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, anti means this. I'm like, well, no, anti-hero doesn't mean it's not a hero, right? Anti-hero is not a villain. Anti-hero is still a hero. So anti-theist, you can be a theist and be an anti-theist. So it cannot mean what you think it means.
I have no words for that. I mean, it's almost like these. I mean, just think for a second about what you're saying before you push send. Like, I mean, I know that everybody says it. Yes, everybody says it, but just think about it for a second. Read the literature that's already out there on it, the peer-reviewed literature, the SCP. I mean, these are actual philosophers, who other philosophers read it and say, yeah, this is agreeable, and I mean, and there's no reason for, I mean, and it makes sense. I mean, anybody who reads this and says, and afterwards says, oh, it's bullshit, doesn't make sense, they're not reading it sincerely.
Or not reading it. Okay, for example, I'm glad you said that, because like in Wikipedia, it says agnosticism is neither the state of belief or disbelief. Okay, now I agree with that 100%. Now, but let's think about this. If you're using the terminology that I would use, this is when I called Matt Dillahunty out on it, that belief is a positive belief of P and disbelief is a positive belief of not P. And that statement makes sense, right? Agnosticism would be the position where you don't believe P and you don't believe not P, right? I mean, Anthony Flew said that. You read it. I read it to you, right? Nobody has a problem with that. But if you use Matt Dillahunty's understanding of it, which is merely you don't accept, you don't have a belief, then now what do you have? You have agnosticism is between, is a position of not believing, believing and not believing. Well, now you have a problem, because now people read that and go, wait a minute. Yeah, agnosticism makes no sense. I've seen people do this. They're like, wait a minute. It says right here, agnosticism is between believing and not believing. No, that's not what it's saying. You're not understanding what disbelief means. And Darwin's deity actually had that same fucking argument in Discord not long ago. Yeah, I mean, he really was saying agnosticism is impossible because he doesn't understand.
I just listened to that the other day. Oh,
you know what I'm
it was
talking about?
horrible.
Yeah, and by the way, why was my name the thumbnail for that? Did you look at the thumbnail?
Yeah. You were on like a chat screen or something on the thumbnail. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Damn it, Tom. That was Tom's video.
Tom Rabbit. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, Darth Dawkins is just horrible. He's just horrible.
Well, he's a liar.
He actually argued that affirming the consequent was a actually valid rule of inference one time and didn't understand
P
why.
Then Q, therefore P.
He was adamant about it too. He's like, you guys don't understand logic. We're like, you're an idiot. I was like, do you not understand affirming the consequence not the same as modus ponens? He's like, he didn't get it. He just didn't get it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Oh God.
Did you hear the video? Did you hear the video where Mother Ash went off on him?
That was it.
Oh, that was in that same video.
That's
Okay,
the video,
yeah.
Now she started off with her just going nuts on him.
Yeah.
Rightly so, though.
And then it's those videos are so funny too for the reason that Anthony Fletcher dude, like he'll pipe in here and there, basically just like repeating what Darth Dawkins said. You know, like
Anthony Fletcher had a unique ability to literally get every fallacy he's ever talked about wrong. Yeah, no, he had a video series and he would like explain to people fallacies. They got like 6 people total watching because it's wrong every time. People are like, dude, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're not explaining this fallacy correctly. I mean, you gotta remember, he hung out with true empiricism, and true empiricism once said, well, the only way you can get a representative sample if you're doing statistics is if you ask everybody in the population. We're like, dude, what?
Have you ever heard that other Darth acolyte? I think he calls himself Batman or something like that.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you the story about him if I give you a minute.
All
right. Okay, Batman's also named his real name, and I'm not doxing him. This is what he goes by on Facebook. Is Jim Barber, also known as Batman, also known as Christian Hillbilly, also known as Pops. This guy was the original disgusting human being of all time. He used to be a bus driver, and he was a bus driver for special needs children. And one day, a special needs child had confided in him that somebody did something to them inappropriately. Very inappropriately. His response to them was, well, that person was just acting their free will that God gave them. Yeah.
Oh.
He's been a pariah in my book ever since. I don't think you get much more disgusting than that.
No.
Yeah, he is a vile, very, very just reprehensible being. He was like the original Dean Esme of vileness. So yeah, that's the story behind him. I've been around a very long time. I got the dirt on everybody. Yeah. I mean,
have you been doing YouTube since it came out?
No, I've not been around that long. I've only been around like 6 years. That's really not that long on YouTube.
I mean, did you originally put your stuff out like over Telegraph?
Yeah, we were bulletin board systems. We had dial-up. And by the way, yeah, Christian Hillbilly is not really a DD lackey, by the way. Just FYI, I don't think they even get along.
I've heard them on Discord things together.
Yeah. So Kilo Doggy one says, Steve, I'm glad you explained the agnostic thing. I watched Atheist Experience a couple of years and was brainwashed into calling myself agnostic atheist rather than agnostic. Yeah, well, even Matt Dillahunty has changed his position on that, and Anthony Magnabosco, he no longer uses agnostic atheist. And I don't give a shit that you call yourself agnostic atheist, but I don't want people to go around going, yeah, I'm a critical thinker, when they use something silly like that. Where belief is a subset of knowledge, and then they call themselves a critical thinker. No, you're not. If you think belief is a subset of knowledge, you don't understand the topic.
That one has always bothered me.
It happens though, frequently.
Yeah.
I had somebody the other day. Casey from the Non Sequitur show. She's convinced that belief is a subset of knowledge, and I asked her for evidence, and I got blocked. Okay, whatever. People don't want to give evidence for things that they cannot rationally explain. And I think that's one of the things I call people out for, that if atheists want to be the high-minded, high road, I'm more critical thinker than theist, act like it. Be consistent.
But it's much harder to go through the nuance of thinking about it than to just grab onto a real good catchphrase and run with it.
Yeah. Why not?
I want to get back to the arguments one of these days. I mean, I had some things like, remember when I did like explain the argument from logical problem of evil? That was fun. Argument from contingency. I start explaining things about, I get like Dave S. and a few other people, what you run across.
Let's move away from it.
Pick your best theist argument and let's take it apart and explain. Like, for example, Jim, do you not cringe when you hear an atheist go, well, the Kalam cosmological argument is not valid? I cringe. because it's clearly a logically valid argument. It's just not
Sure.
sound, right? You can
Yeah.
attack the premises, but when a theist hears you say that's not logically valid, they automatically will think that you don't know what you're doing, and that's a disadvantage in a conversation.
Well, I mean, that's only assuming that they know what logic means as well.
Well,
Yeah.
it's because they're thinking of like a colloquial definition of valid.
And a colloquial definition of sound.
Yeah,
Sure.
Soundness means something very specific when you're talking about things like furniture. You know, this is a sound piece of furniture, which means
sturdy.
it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, sturdy.
Well,
And that doesn't, to a colloquial mind, someone who's understanding colloquially, that's not something that you're looking at in terms of, is it is it true?
but that's why I want atheists to kind of have a basic understanding of these things, because I listen to them say these things and I just go, no, don't do that, because now this theist is going to think that you don't even understand basic logic.
Mhm.
Because I mean, like Jim, we're all in the same boat. Non-believers, doesn't matter if you take the atheist label, agnostic, you're still non-believers. And I hate to do tribalism, but there's a certain thing to be said by, I don't want people thinking that all non-believers are idiots, because I fall into that category.
I don't think that, Steve.
I don't know, man. I get very frustrated. That's all. I admit it. I
So
hear
Steve,
so many people.
this is why people write books, because then they can cite themselves. You don't like my argument? Go read my book.
No, I do that with my blog. I find nothing wrong with that, actually. It saves me time. I just say, here's my blog. Go read it. If you don't want it, you know. But I've already addressed this a million times, and I'm finding out that people actually have read my blog. People actually of notability have either, well, most of them, many of them read it. One notable person, he wasn't too much of a fan, but he has a very, very big blog. His name is Lawrence Moran. He's a PhD biochemist from Sandwalk. But when I asked him what is about my blog he didn't agree with, he had no specificity. And I find it to be, well, okay, if you don't like my blog, that's fine, but at least give me reasons. There was just nothing of substance there. Well, I just don't agree with you about atheism. Okay, well, that's fine, but what is wrong? Did I say something wrong in my blog? Did I get an error? What's my next topic?
And then again, he might have not been reading it critically.
Yeah, I don't think he was. Because I have a lot of other people that, like Cy Gart, he's a PhD in chemistry, biochemistry. He's not no issue with what I write. So I might have some grammatical errors, but the logic's pretty spot on, I think. See, like colloquially though, valid equals sound. I don't even know if colloquially that means that. You have to be really colloquial for that.
Well, yeah.
So
but
Harry says, "Can you explain why the Kalam is sound?" No, I don't think the Kalam is sound. I don't think the premises really work. The Kalam says anything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, so the universe has a cause. Now that is a logical, valid form, right? That's a great modus ponens. But the principle of beginning to have a cause, there's some equivocation issues there, and also in science we also know that things that exist may not have a cause. In fact, cannot have a cause.
Well, and there are also theories that propose that the universe has no beginning. That it is just as infinite. I mean, it's crazy how theists have such a hard time wrapping their mind around an eternity before this, but they have no problem wrapping their mind around an eternity after this.
Yeah, they don't like past regression, but they can do future infinite, right?
Yeah, it just kind of.
But I mean, I think there probably was some kind of beginning. Use of beginning. I have no problem with the beginning, but a beginning doesn't mean. So the most that can get you is that it had a naturalistic cause by some kind of nucleation point of a quantum bubble. Okay, great. It doesn't get you to any kind of what's called efficient agent. There's four types of causations in Aristotelian logic, And you could apply, which one are they talking about? Efficient cause, material cause, formal cause? There's, what are they, what kind of cause are they talking about here? So if you just think,
just cause.
but
Just cause.
it also it's predicated on what's called a principle of sufficient reason. And the principle of sufficient reason is just saying in the watered down version of it, there's kind of different levels to it, but the watered down version is that anything that has a reason to exist, anything that exists has a reason to exist in the most basal form of it. Now, I don't particularly agree with that. I don't think that necessarily has to hold. And you can't even take the PSR without applying the PSR to it, because if everything has a reason to exist, then why does the principle of reason exist? There's no reason for it. You just have to take it axiomatically as a brute fact. So it gets you right back to the Munchausen trilemma. Jim, do you remember the three things from the Munchausen trilemma?
I don't know.
Circularity, brute fact, infinite regress.
What was the first one?
Circularity.
Circularity.
So Agrippa's dilemma or Munchausen trilemma is basically said you can't prove all logical truths of a logical system. You're always going to have to, at some point, reach a point and just say, I'm taking these things axiomatically, or I'm just taking them as brute fact. Or you just have circularity, or you just have an infinite regress. There's nothing illogical about an infinite regress. It's conceptually difficult, but there's nothing illogical about it.
Well, what about like the whole first mover kind of thing, like the
Aquinas' first mover argument?
Yeah.
What
is that? That's his second proof, right?
Yeah. There's 5 things that Aquinas.
Yeah.
But also Aquinas also came up with objections to his own arguments. But I think that I have this book. I have a metaphysical books on Aquinas here. Not an easy read, by the way.
Aquinas, no.
Oh, yeah, no. You think Kant's bad. But my thing is this: if there was a first mover, we can't explain that with symmetry breaking.
Well, right. I mean, especially whenever you're saying that causal effect is one mover having influence upon another, that something can't move until it's set into motion by a previous mover.
A causal chain, right?
So, and then you have at the beginning some point, and what they call the unmoved mover, but something would have to move the unmoved mover to move the other movers.
No, I don't have. No, that's I think is
that's an infinite regress.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, instead of talking about the unmoved mover, which would be you have something that is the first condition that causes all motion that stems from it, right? I think you could actually make that into what's called the argument from contingency. Have you heard that argument?
Yes.
Okay, so the argument contingency, there's 3 things you can end up with. It basically says, and anything that exists has a reason to exist that has a continual relationship through causal chain to something else. And so one of the easiest things is called infinite regress. It just basically, we're contingent, we're based upon something else, that's based upon something else, that's based upon something else, all the way backwards.
Sure.
Not illogical. Now,
all the way backwards, where is there a stopping point?
No, because then it wouldn't have, no, because you can't have that.
Okay, but the theists posit that there is a stopping point, and that stopping point.
We're gonna get to the other 2 horns. There's 3 horns here.
Okay.
Okay. There's actually very, very similar to the theories of knowledge, or excuse me, theories of justification, and one of them is called infinitism, and infinitism is a type of epistemic justification based upon infinite regress. The other thing you can do would be coherentism and foundationalism. They also have problems with circularity and arbitrariness. But the other 2 horns that you can take is, one, everything that's contingent is contingent upon something else that ends up stopping at something that's contingent. Okay. We would call that a brute fact.
Okay.
So
wait, say that again.
Everything that exists is contingent upon something else that's contingent upon something else, and an infinite chain of regression that ends up not infinite. You end up at a first contingent thing.
So it is not. It is not infinite. So then it's not infinite.
Yeah, it's not really infinite.
Okay.
We would call that foundationalism. if you want to do a parallelism, it has facts, right?
Okay.
Okay. The
So is
third
that basically the uncaused cause? Is that basically what that is?
No, that's the third option. The uncaused cause or the
Oh,
prime mover.
okay.
The third option would be an infinite, well, almost infinite, right? Chain of things going back to a metaphysical necessity. Okay. This is what the theist posits. That
Right.
metaphysical necessity is God. And they posit the God because a metaphysical necessity must exist in all possible worlds. Not just one, has to exist in all of them. Okay. That's what it means to be a metaphysical necessity. It has to exist in every logical possible world. And so the thing with that is that's rational. Those are very three rational positions. And the third one is fine. I don't have them positive, a problem with them positing.
Oh, no, I don't think that every theist would agree with you there. I don't think every theist would say that God operates outside of this world if there are other worlds.
We're talking
Because
about possible worlds. Don't get confused here.
right. But the Bible says, "For God so loved the world," not the worlds.
Okay, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah. Are you serious? You're not serious, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely serious.
No, he's talking about the Earth. We're talking about possible modal. We're talking about modal possible worlds. Modal is meaning possible, necessity. Those are modal types of logics. If I say
Right.
P is possible, that's a modal operator on the proposition.
Okay.
There's a lot. If I say something is logically possible, that means it must exist in one possible world.
Okay. So is it possible that there's a world that exists where God wouldn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's logically possible.
But I thought I thought that the assertion was just made that
God is a metaphysical necessity.
I know, but okay, but if you are saying that he's a metaphysical necessity,
they would argue that God must exist in all possible worlds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but theists, I don't think that every theist would make that argument. Is what I'm saying.
I think that if they understood it, they would. God, look at
possibly.
They would argue God cannot cease to exist. They would argue it cannot be any other way. God is a metaphysical necessity that it can be no other way. I've never met a theist that would argue otherwise for that.
Okay.
I mean, that's not on crack. I mean, a theist
maybe not in those words, though. Maybe just not in those words.
Well, sure, but I mean, if a theist says, "Yeah, I believe," I believe in Christianity, but God can vanish anytime He wants to. I don't think.
Yeah, but you couldn't be talking about all possible worlds if there is one where God or the metaphysical beginner doesn't exist, because that would be a possible world, but metaphysically is contingent on everything. Okay.
No, I know what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me explain this. If something is logically possible, it means it must exist in a possible world. Mm-hmm. If it is logically impossible, it cannot exist in any possible world. If it's metaphysically necessity, it must exist in all possible worlds. So if I say 1 + 1 = 5, given the same axioms, that cannot exist in any other. That cannot exist in any possible world. It's logically impossible. Okay, but if I say, hey, if I drop a ball and it flies up to the sun, that's possible, right? It's not logically impossible. It just gets laws of physics. But we're not talking about biology or physics. We're talking about logic. So in some possible world, gravity works the other way.
So in a possible world, a cow can jump over the moon?
Yes. But you got to remember, I'm a moral anti-realist, right? Those worlds do not actually exist in any ontological sense. But there is actually a position, David Lewis, I think his name, he argues for modal realism, right? And you'll be like, well, how would anybody think those possible worlds actually have ontology? It's a very bizarre argument, and it bloats your ontology to no end, to an infinite degree. But he relates it similarly to mathematical Platonism and Quine's argument for indispensability, that we use these things like sets. And so we tend to think sets are real entities in mathematical Platonism. And a lot of mathematicians do hold to that. And there's reasons for that. I tend more to nominalism, right? But that's just convenient for me. I'm not married to those positions. But you find a lot of mathematicians actually do hold to Platonism, that these forms do exist in a concrete kind of way. But that's philosophy. You don't have to hold it one or the other.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, what's up?
So these last 5 minutes, have you come to a point where your brain hurts as much as mine does?
It's been pretty much numb for the past hour.
Let me finish the argument contingency so we can wrap this up. So, anyways, those are the three things for the argument contingency that you can have. Now, the problem I have with that is that let's suppose, Jim, that we do posit a metaphysical necessity, and you want to call that God. Okay. Now you run into another problem, though, because the argument for contingency is predicated on the principle of sufficient reason, which means that everything that exists has a reason, except for metaphysical necessity, which is fine. You don't. This is where you made the mistake, Jim. A metaphysical necessity must exist. Therefore, it doesn't need a reason to exist. Because
that's precept.
No, it's not precept. This is logic here. Don't confuse the two.
Bullshit.
It's not bullshit. It's not special pleading. Okay.
But that is a reason for it to exist, that it must exist.
Right. I mean, if you want to argue it that way, fine. The reason why it exists is no other way. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not where you attack this argument. Okay. Where you attack the argument is that given those conditions, then there's two possible things that God could have created the earth or the universe for. One, he had to, right? He was beholden for some reason to create this possible world of all of them, right? Which means something of higher value he is beholden to, which kind of goes away from his aseity and his omnipotence and everything else. Because wait a minute, God had to do something? That seems odd to think that God had some kind of obligation to make this exact possible world. It doesn't explain anything. What was it that he was beholden to? There's no
and what about free will?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Sure.
But the other option
you just blew my mind, dude.
Think about the other option. Think about the other option. If he didn't have to make this particular world, that means this world was completely arbitrary, which means that he had no reason to why he created this possible world and made it actual. Which means that doesn't. Right. And when you have arbitrariness, you cannot have the principle of sufficient reason. There was no reason for it. It was random. That's not a reason.
And then you have the morality aspect. If it's arbitrary, then how is it moral to make somebody suffer when it's not necessary for them to even exist in the first place?
Well, those are the moral instincts. But the two things that I've described, either God is beholden to create this possible world out of all of them, or God just because he wanted to and didn't have any rhyme or reason, it's arbitrary. Both of them don't satisfy PSR. That's how I attack the argument for contingency. It doesn't satisfy it. It doesn't answer anything.
Well, so you say, okay, so if you say God must exist,
I'm okay with that.
And that okay, but then from what the other stuff you just said, in my mind, I'm going, okay, so God must exist, but doesn't there have to be something that, and this is going to sound clunky, but something that created the must part of that?
No, because metaphysical necessity can be no other way. It just cannot be. So there is nothing that created God. He has to, and this is their argument, and they're right as far as a metaphysical necessity. A metaphysical necessity has to be. It doesn't require justification because it has to be that case. It could be no possible other way. Like, for example, a square circle, right? We all agree a square circle cannot exist, right?
But yes, it can. God can make it.
No, he can't.
Yeah, he can.
No, he can't.
And he can create a rock so big you can't lift it.
That's a bad argument too. Atheists will argue only God is logically possible. But do you agree though that a square circle is not logically possible, right?
No,
right.
Yeah,
and what's the reasoning? Because it cannot exist in any possible world. That is the reason.
Right.
It's self-evident. And so a metaphysical necessity is just the opposite. It exists in every possible world because it could be no other way. And I can only think of a handful. I mean, people will posit like math is a metaphysical necessity. They'll posit even chemical formulas like H2O is a metaphysical necessity. I'm not a big fan of that argument, but
wait. What?
Yeah, there's been an argument that H2O could be no other way as far as what actually it is as a metaphysical necessity. I don't know if I buy that argument though.
Well, we can make the compound ourselves with hydrogen and oxygen. We can make H2O. Like, it is a chemical compound using naturally occurring elements. There's nothing metaphysical about it.
Well, but metaphysical means existence. But one type of metaphysical. There's many things. Time is metaphysical. Existence is metaphysical.
Right, but what instance are they using it in? Like what context are they using metaphysical in?
I don't know the full argument. I'm gonna have to look that one up about why they think that water is an example of a metaphysical necessity. Now I know math. 1 + 1 = 2 is a metaphysical.
Well, the way I'm thinking about it is the woo shit metaphysical.
No, that's not what metaphysical means here.
Jelly juice is a metaphysical necessity.
Yeah, I talked about it. I have to talk a little bit about it, but no, metaphysical means, like, for example, time, the concept of time. That's metaphysics. Because what do we think time is, Jim? We think it's a measurement between two different states of affairs in the universe.
Well, yeah, it's two different points in space.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, I would say that it's the difference. Well, it depends if you're talking about linear time.
Well, what kind of time are you talking about? Look at.
Well, you're the one who asked the question.
Thought experiment, Jim. Let's say you have a universe that's completely empty besides two atoms.
Okay.
And let's say they're like, I don't know, a foot apart. Okay. Or an inch apart. It doesn't matter. Just pick some random length. If there's no movement between those atoms, is there any time?
Yes.
Okay. But that's a philosophy, because
because they it doesn't matter about how much distance is between them. There can be distance between them, and then both still be in motion.
Listen to me, Jim. You're talking about different state of affairs of the universe between what's called reductionism and Platonism with respect to time. And let me explain what I mean by this. If you're an outside observer, or even if you're in the universe, you're the only thing in the universe, and all you have is just those two references. If there is no movement between those atoms, you have nothing to measure and gauge time by. Okay? Time is an illusionary concept. There's nothing there. What is time at that point?
Yes, you do. You can.
Then you're calling then you're a Platonist. I'm not.
No. You can look at the atom, and you can look at rotations of protons and neutrons, and you can gauge the passing of time.
Okay. Let's assume, for argument, nothing has changed. I'm making it very coarse. Nothing's changed in the state of the system. Everything's exactly the same. There's no movement. There's nothing. Is time passing?
You're saying that the protons and neutrons aren't moving or anything?
Shit. There's nothing for you to measure by which you can say there's been any change of the system whatsoever.
How long do I have to study it?
What does that mean to be how long? How do you know this time? That's no point. You say how long? What does it mean to be how long?
How long can you study nothing?
Yeah. A Platonist will say that time exists as the container, and there's still passages of time, even if nothing in the universe changes.
Well, sure. There would be passing of time because I'm observing it.
What do you? You're not listening to the question, Jim. If there's no change of the status of the universe, there's nothing to measure anything by which to say the time has passed.
Jim, how do we measure time here on Earth?
Because we notice a change of things.
Right. Well, yeah, because we have cycles that we notice.
Well, we install a change.
Right.
We have mechanisms that tell us that.
And we can say the direction of time is that which increases entropy to the universe. That's called time zero. So if the entropy hasn't changed in the universe, we don't even know which way time is flowing at that point. So this is two things in physics, metaphysics, of how to look at time. Platonist, which is, like I said, Platonism with respect to time, or reductionism with respect to time.
Well, again, I mean, it depends what you're talking about, because if you are supposing that you are making this observation, I mean, you don't have to be moving in space in order to know that while you're processing these ideas, that it's taking time.
Okay, I got to
do
use
that.
Special examples for Jim here. All right, so I have two universes. Okay. Both of them are in stasis. Nothing is moving, changing any way, shape, or form at all. Can you visualize that? They're frozen.
Yeah. Okay.
The first one, actually time exists. We call that Platonist. The second one, time does not exist. We call it reductionist. How would you tell them apart?
How would you tell them apart? the reductionist one, you would have nothing there from which to have context. So there would be nobody in there supposing anything. Anything that would be in there would be completely motionless without.
Both of them are completely motionless. There's no difference in the universe. Both of them are in
Right.
state.
Okay. So yeah. So I would say that the only difference would be I'm not in the reductionist one.
Yeah. The correct answer is there is no possible way, and you just pick a philosophy you like. You pick one or the other. You can be a reductionist or Platonist. It doesn't matter.
No, I mean,
there's no distinction between the two. There's no measurable way you can tell the difference.
Yeah, it all depends on whether or not you're positing somebody in that universe making this observation.
It's like pulling teeth.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, you're in that universe, but you are in it. Okay, but you are in a state of stasis.
Okay.
You're frozen. I mean,
my thoughts as well.
Everything.
You're not even in the universe. You're just looking from the outside.
Yeah, there you go.
Even if I'm looking at it from the outside, yes, I can tell that time is passing because I'm making this observation because I can tell.
No. You're outside of time. You have nothing to do with you're in a spatial-temporal disconnect. You're isolated. You're called an impartial outside observer. You're not really good at hypotheticals, are you, Jim?
I mean, I think I am, but we may just be talking past each other here. But I mean,
let me ask Dr. Griffith.
Run by me one more time.
You have two universes that are identical in every way. They're in stasis. And by the way, there is an experiment that we've done on this, but it's way too complicated to get in because I barely understand it, and I don't think even I do understand it. But for simplicity's sake, so you have two universes, exactly the same stasis. Nothing's changing in any way, shape, or form. You have no measurement of time by which we can measure. You can't say this is, from A to B. There is no A to B to A. Nothing's changed. No decay is going on. They're exactly the same as they were. Whatever. I mean, whether it's 1 second or a billion years, no change has occurred. So how do you know there's a passage of time? You don't. They're equally valid philosophies in what you want to measure of time. You want to say that time is a concrete thing and it actually does pass, even though nothing's changed. Or you can say, well, no, if there's nothing changes, then yeah, time doesn't really pass.
I think
that approach. I think time's illusionary. I don't think time is actually a concrete. I think if nothing moved in the universe, there would be no time.
I think as long as there is an observer, then there's time.
Yeah, well, the observer.
Jim,
you have to take a step out of that. That's the problem. You have to be able to say, I'm the observer. I'm not in part of the system.
But in order to make the observation, in order to assess your observation, in order to come to a reasonable conclusion, that takes a passing of time.
To you, not to
yes, correct. To me,
for you.
Right, but by looking at the universe, I can tell that there's a passing of time because while I am looking at
with you,
right, but I'm still observing. Right,
okay,
but I'm still observing this other universe.
You don't exist. Forget it. Now you
can't just poof me like that, Steve.
Dude, you're dead. You're dead to me. Now you have two universes where Jim doesn't exist.
Okay.
Now now is there a difference?
Yeah, it's much sadder here.
I hate you.
Well, look, Jim, do you agree with Steve that observing change is what allows you to perceive time? Do you agree with that?
One more time.
Observing change allows you to perceive time. Do you agree with that? Okay.
Right.
Okay. So the reason that Steve's right that if there was no change, or not the reason, but something to support that, if you go faster, there's time dilation, and they've done experiments to prove that if an object is moving fast enough, the old, you get in a spaceship and you travel at the speed of light, and by the time you get back, everybody's dead. That kind of thing. Yeah. So if it would change in that fashion under those conditions, then why is it so hard to conceive that if there was no change anywhere in the universe, you could not perceive time? I mean, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, well, it's going to exist. If there is no time to be measured, then is there really such thing as time? But my point was all this is what metaphysics deals with. Like for example, you,
But-
Jim, you're comprised of atoms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just a reshaping of atoms that already exist. Let's call the atoms primitives. You're
Okay.
an object because of those primitives are in a for whatever reason bonded together in a way to form you. Now you can reduce that down to a very simplistic shape, right? Let's go down to a very, very, like, I don't know, an apple, right? That apple is just a reshaping of the same atoms that's in anything else. The neurological nihilist says that apple doesn't really exist. It's just like a colored dots on a paper forming a picture. The picture doesn't
Right.
really exist. It's an illusion. The colored dots exist. They're made out of something. But the picture itself doesn't exist. You don't exist to a neurological nihilist. You're not a primitive. To a neurological nihilist, objects are not in existence. That's what we mean by metaphysics.
That's
You
why I'm
know
not
what?
one.
And not only that, but not only is the picture of the apple not really real, but if you squint just right, you'll see a unicorn.
Yeah. I think they're on the ark. No, dude, man, I'm telling you, this stuff blows your mind, man. I don't sleep a lot because I think a lot about this crap. And I was doing like stuff that you were talking about, John, back in high school, dealing with special relativity, Lorentz contraction. I've had the formula memorized since like 16. 1 divided by the square root of 1 minus v squared divided by c squared. I mean, I'll never forget it. And I've actually used it easily to show people this is what your Lorentz factor would be, your time dilation factor. So if you went to the nearest star at going 0.99998% of the speed of light, this is your factor, which means that for every 1 second passes for you, this is how many seconds passes for, well, if you're on the trip, this is how many seconds passes to whoever you leave behind on Earth. This is why if you went near the speed of light, believe it or not, you would get to Alpha Centauri pretty goddamn quick. It wouldn't take you 4 years. You would be there before you know it. You blink an eye, you're there. But the Earth is still 4.2 years older. So on the return trip, the Earth is now epically older because of time dilation, right? So you may have only aged a few seconds. You literally can go to Alpha Centauri and back in a few seconds. But the Earth is going to be many, probably tens of thousands of years older.
Well,
And if you're moving at the speed of light, you don't get to see anything anyway.
Yeah, it'd be dark.
It'd be dark.
Yeah, because all the light.
It'd be-
Oh, okay, so like in all those sci-fi shows where they show the stars streaking by out the windows, that's bullshit, huh?
What you'll see,
Yeah, we do
you'll see it like start like ahead of you, a dark spot, and then you have this blue shifting. So light coming towards you, right? We'll see this blue shift, and then as you move away, it'll start red shifting. So eventually, everything is just going to be like this blackness. Even though you're traveling at the speed of light, and somebody next to you traveling at the speed of light, to you, they're traveling at the speed of light. And to them, it's weird because you think about it, you have two cars going at 100 miles an hour going the same direction, right?
Mhm.
You can actually look over and see the guy next to you, the driving next to you, right? Because you're driving at the same speed. There's zero velocity between you two, right?
Mhm.
Makes sense? That doesn't work at the speed of light. You have two cars going at the speed of light. One of them is going to look over and he's going to see a car going past him at the speed of light. That's a very hard thing to wrap your head around.
What?
wait.
What?
Wait, what?
Remember what's it called, an inertial frame of reference, right?
Right.
To you, something's going the speed of light. It's not going to sit there and be frozen next to you. It's going to be traveling with respect to you at the speed of light. It will pass you at the speed of light.
But you're going the speed of light. Wait.
That's what sucks about relativity. This is one thing that's very hard to wrap your head around, right? You think you have two cars going at the speed of light. You look over, you can see the car next to you. No, he's going to be zooming past you at the speed of light.
But will you be zooming past him at the speed of light?
Yes.
Well, what?
It's called not synchronicity. God damn it.
It's called out of your damn
Steve-
mind. Is what that's called.
No.
Steve, you are trolling us right
I'm
now.
not.
You gotta be.
You got to be
And-
trolling, man.
Yeah, no.
Simultaneity. Sorry.
Wow.
I couldn't think of the word. God damn it. It's called the problem of simultaneity.
But you don't have to worry about it anyway because the light won't have enough time to bounce off the object you're looking at and come back into your eyeball.
Yeah,
It-
that's a good
So
point.
everything would be
There's an
dark.
interesting paradox.
That's a good
with
point.
this. Not just the twin paradox. There's an interesting paradox called the I call it the barn and ladder paradox. I don't know if it has actually another name to it, but the barn and ladder paradox. And the way this one works is this: you've got a barn, And you have a ladder that's a little bit longer than the length of the barn. And the barn has 2 doors. Okay. So if you open up both the doors, the ladder can go through the barn. But you can't close both the doors at the same time because the ladder's a little bit longer than the barn. Okay. Makes sense so far?
Yeah.
Now, if that ladder is traveling at the speed of light, and by the way, you can put these things as sensors. So let's say that the ladder starts to hit the first door, a sensor opens that door, it gets near the back of the barn, another sensor opens, the back door opens, and it can pass through. Okay. But at the speed of light, what happens to things? It contracts. It's called Lorentz contraction. Okay. Things get shorter. So now what's going to happen in that ladder as it passes through the barn at the speed of light? It'll be entirely contained in the barn. Both doors can actually shut, and it'll be contained in there.
But the barn gets shorter too.
No, the barn's stationary.
Yeah.
Oh, and
I've heard that.
Barn stationary.
I've heard that same thought experiment. Only they used a train.
Same principle.
Like with an enclosed building it had doors on both ends.
But Steve.
But now you have a weird situation. You've got a ladder in there that's bigger than the barn, that's encapsulated with both doors shut.
But what happens is that when it's going at the speed of light, and whoever shuts that other door, whichever poor idiot does that, is going to get blown to pieces because that light's just going to come flying through that fucking door like crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy.
I know how fast that is, Steve. That's really fast.
Yeah.
Jim, did you just what had happened was us?
Yeah, I did. What had happened.
Well, let me ask you this, Jim. A photon leaves a star that's 13 billion light years away. You really honestly instantly know that the path from that photon to your eye has taken that photon 13 billion years, right? That's not that high math, right?
Right.
But to the photon, if you were that photon, how much time passed for that photon?
Oh, not that long.
You want to know there's going to be the weird answer to this question?
Go for it.
What's Steve just
0 time. That photon left that galaxy 13 billion years ago, and instantly, to its respect to its position and its time frame, hit your eye. It experienced no travel time.
Okay, then I'm definitely a Platonist because that sounds like some bullshit.
Well, is the reason, Steve, because a photon isn't sentient and can't perceive time?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that a photon is traveling at the speed of light, and relativistic to its frame of reference, its travel already been done. At the speed of light, you instantly hit somewhere. I can go 99.99999% at the speed of light and go to Alpha Centauri. I'll be there in minutes, not 4.5 years. Okay, with respect to my time, to a photon traveling at the speed of light, it's infinite time. There is a 0 time passage with respect to the photon.
But
this is not easy stuff to wrap your head around.
But in perspective of people on Earth, though, it takes you, a lot longer.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
But we could, if we have the technology, we can get a person with respect to their own time to the nearest star, no problem.
Okay. Well, what if we can observe somebody traveling at the speed of light?
You can't.
You can't.
Like
what Dr. Misha just said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, you've got major issues there, because when you're looking at something at the speed of light, you have one, it's going to get very, very, very short because of time dilation, and the communication is going to get very, very short, and the time you're going to be looking at them, and they're going to be moving like molasses.
Okay, so if we can travel at the speed of light, then I would think it would be to say that we can communicate at the speed of light. If not faster than we can travel, not faster than the speed of light, but faster than we can travel. So wouldn't we still be able to communicate?
No, there's something called no communication theorem.
Wait a minute. We already communicate at the speed of light. What are you talking about?
Light speed is light speed.
I mean, what I mean is faster than we would travel.
Okay, there's 2 theories on this. One, have you heard of the Accubary metric? Or I think it's pronounced Accubary, if you want to be French or whatever. I don't know. I don't do accents right. But anyways, Accubary, somebody fix my pronunciation for this guy. I'll never get it right. But he has this metric where he has done like a Star Trek thing. He has shown that you can actually ride space-time faster than what going through space-time would allow. Warp drive, basically.
By warping space-time.
By warping space-time. The problem is it needs a very high degree of negative energy.
Yeah.
It required more mass than the universe has available that we know of in order to make this happen.
Unless
So
you
that's mathematically
make
fat.
a wormhole.
No, it doesn't use wormhole technology. It uses warping of space-time.
It's not illogical, Steve.
Yes, logical. But when it comes to fast light communication, the problem is there's nothing usable that can be transmitted faster than the speed of light. We can have instant communication. Quantum entanglement is instant. But what are you going to send to somebody? There's nothing communicative between the receiver and the receiver. The only way you can have any kind of meaningful communication is if before the sender left, you said, okay, this is what this is going to mean. But that doesn't do you any good, because now the sender has to leave that location and travel, and that's going to take a long time for you. So you're not gaining anything, So there's really no way to send Alcubierre. Yeah. I can't pronounce his name. I think it's Alcubierre.
Alcubierre, yeah.
Alcubierre. I'm gonna go with Alcubierre.
I can't, unfortunately, I can't see the chat. So
ACL. His name is Aculbierre.
I actually have Cajun family with that last name. They say Alcubierre, but I don't.
Alcubierre. Yeah.
But I don't know if that's how they pronounce it or not.
But yeah, you're never. I don't think we're ever going to have something called subspace radio like Star Trek has. Yeah, who knows? Might be able to cheat the system, but faster than light communication.
Cool band name.
Won't be in our lifetime.
Subspace radio. Subspace radio.
Look at the subspace.
How do we go talking from like epistemology to like physics?
Because we're just cool like that.
Because we're on a Steve McRae stream.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the next time we're going to have is Dr. Griffiths needs to talk about history, so I can sit back and just listen.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Like what?
I don't know. It's your field. Pick something.
You could literally pick anything, Dr. Misha, and we will listen to it.
Brain is fried tonight, you guys. Can I tell my one physics joke?
Of course, you might. The one Jim told earlier, wasn't it? If it is, I'm gonna.
Well, no.
I'm going to tell it again. Go ahead.
What? If you've ever heard the joke of Heisenberg and Schrodinger are traveling in a car together, and a cop pulls them over and says, and the cop says, "Do you know where you are?" And Heisenberg says, "Yeah, I know where I am." And the cop says, "Well, do you know you were speeding?" And he says, "Oh, I do now." And then says, "Oh, great, I'm lost." Now that I know, I told the joke wrong. I know it's related. Yeah. And then the cop asks "Can I look in your trunk? Because I suspect that you're traveling with stuff." And he says, "Sure." And the cop opens the trunk and comes back and says, "There's a dead cat in your trunk." And Schrodinger says, "Well, now we know."
Now we know. Heisenberg and Schrodinger, delta x delta y is greater than or equal to, what is it? H bar over 2 pi? Or is it 2? H and H bar is reduced H, so it has to be over 2 pi.
Are you seriously asking us though?
Well, basically, in a nutshell, the Heisenberg principle says that if you know the exact location of a particle at any given time, you cannot know the exact momentum. It's a trade-off. So you cannot have 100% certainty on both of them. If you know the exact position of one, you have no idea about the momentum, and if you know the exact momentum, you have no idea about the position.
Hey, Steve, can I please see my physics?
I do remember something from my physics courses. Not much, but whatever. Yeah, do your silly joke that I've heard a million times.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this physicist, and he's walking down the sidewalk, and he hears somebody yelling, and he looks up, and he sees this man on the 10th story on the ledge, and he's backed up against the wall, and he's saying, "I'm going to jump," and the physicist runs across the street and he looks at the bottom of the building. He looks up to where the guy is and he makes some quick calculations and some assessments, and he says, "Don't do it. You have so much potential."
Ooh.
All right, I'm gonna leave this with my joke, and then so thank you all for watching this tonight. This was fun. I hope Timeshark learned something. If not, whatever. I'm not here to really like pick on people, but it's just the point now where I'm just gonna mock if I think people are just not willing to have an honest dialogue. I don't care. I have friends. I have people that listen to me. I have you guys, and I love you all. And I can do this every night and have great conversations. If some people don't want to be a part of that, they don't have to be. Let them think what they want. So this is my joke. Before I say goodnight, ready? We don't serve time travelers in here. A time traveler walked into a bar. Good night.